Lucy is an unemployed 23-year-old with nowhere to live, so she's desperate for a job, and although she has no resume, she plans to sweet-talk her way into getting hired by claiming she is hardworking. After waiting and knocking repeatedly, she feels defeated and decides to rest by the door. She'd leave, but without any other option, she waits under the cold, concluding the owner of the mansion is out on business or a really heavy sleeper. Besides, the mansion is situated on a mountaintop, meaning there is no inn to stay at or a carriage to take her back to the village. She'd have to walk back, but it's not worth it, considering the 30 million gold per year pay that was advertised on the employment ad. Along with the lavish pay, the name of the employer, Scar, was highlighted, and the fact that the employer hates people and saved a slot for just one person. Such a mouth-watering advertisement should have attracted a lot of applicants, and even Lucy thought it was a human trafficking scheme at first. However, when she asked around in the village and heard about the owner's poor attitude and the number of people he had fired, she understood the reason behind the high pay. Simply put, the high pay was fixed because no one lasts. The house is like some impossible game show, and it's rumored that the employer is a dragon. Oh, no. It's not a rumor. He is an actual dragon. Lucy knew this, but couldn't care less. She was at a point in her life where she didn't mind working for any species as long as it got her pay. That's why she rushed to the mansion, expecting some fantasy castle, only for her to meet something smaller. Also, she heard Scar stopped a war, which made her immediately conclude he was a good dragon. He was also the key to her achieving her goal of buying her own house, given the 30 million a year pay he was offering, so she planned to throw in extra services if necessary. Services like tail cleaning, and any other crazy stuff. Before coming, she was warned about Scar's short-tempered nature, high expectations, and the chances of her dying if she messed up. Yet, her answer to all that was the high pay he was offering. She had worked for a lot of people who acted similarly and gave her peanuts. Compared to them, this guy was generous. Her 15 years of living paycheck to paycheck, gathering only $1 million as savings was about to end if she got the job, and that pushed her, fueling her determination. Sadly, all that determination dies for a split second in front of Scar's mansion when she passes out. The cold and nighttime had gotten to her, and she longed for sunlight. By the time she regains consciousness, she notices light from inside the mansion, and all that energy that dragged her here is restored. The owner is in, she thinks. Immediately, she runs toward the light, hoping to get his attention, but in her way, there she spots the full moon sitting comfortably in the sky. She didn't know it was a full moon night until now, and recalls being warned by a villager not to go to the mansion uninvited, especially on a full moon night. Great, she broke the only rules she was given, but it's all good, right? No, it's not, and she realizes this when the bright light she is rushing to turns into an explosion. Lucy marvels at this occurrence before thinking about the owner of the mansion who could have gotten caught in the explosion. If he gets hurt, then her job is on the line. Maybe that's why she rushes towards the explosion instead of away from it. Fate decides to teach her a little lesson for not valuing her life, and a shard drops on her head, causing her to collapse and lose consciousness. Even then, she doesn't get the message and continues to worry about the safety of a man who hasn't even employed her yet. Right before she's completely out, she spots a masculine figure at the just exploded window and wonders who it is. It's Scar who comes down, shocked to see her at his home as he checks to see if she is still alive. In her unconscious state, a memory floats into Lucy's mind. It's a memory of her first day working. She was just 8 years old, on that snowy day when her mom sent her to her first job. It wasn't something her mom was happy about, but Lucy was okay with it, and hoped that by working hard, she would earn enough for her and her mother to buy a house and eat better food. As she ran off, her mom waved her with tears in her eyes, and although she responded, the thick snow didn't let her hear her response. That memory causes her to wake up crying, but she quickly reminds herself that she can't let her guard down now. Now that she's conscious, she can't remember why she was sleeping here. Her memory is a bit fuzzy, with her head hurting, and when she thinks it can't get worse, she notices a man lying by her. He startles her, so she pulls back, scared, unsure who the man is or why his body is covered in tattoos. He has an ominous vibe around him, and she fears that if she keeps staring at him, she'd get cursed. Nevertheless, all thoughts of fear and worry disappear when she spots his tail and decides that he is the owner of the mansion. It's unclear whether he is asleep or knocked out, but Scar, like Lucy, is also being troubled by a memory. It's about his suffering in the hands of a captor who was blonde like Lucy. From the memory of him in captivity, he gets a glimpse of his most recent memory and jolts back to consciousness. Once he wakes up, he can tell something is wrong. By wrong, I mean he is properly tucked in, with a fire lit to warm him up. He suspects it's the doing of the trespasser, who he almost ended. For a second, he thought she was his captor from back in the day, but after a closer look, he could tell they had no resemblance. Even so, he is glad he used his head and didn't end her, although he is sure he needs to add a hair color restriction on his next employment ad. He didn't think about this because he never had a blonde employee until now. The shock isn't over for Scar, who opens a door and sees Lucy fully clothed in a maid's uniform and bandages. Yep, she looks like she is playing Mummy Maid at a Halloween party. It gets worse when she greets him, addressing him as master. She doesn't stop there, informing him that she made stew with the food items she gathered from the food storage. She notices they are almost out and promises to make something better when he restocks. Annoyed, he demands to know why she didn't just leave. She replies that she is here to work, leaving him bewildered. Is she crazy? Probably, but that's not the conclusion he lands on. Instead, he suspects she is something else. Whatever it is, he has no energy for her or her blonde hair and wants her to leave, claiming he doesn't hire blonde humans. As for her injuries, he'll cover her treatment if she just bounced and didn't look back. Instead of taking the offer and leaving, Lucy pleads that she didn't see anything about hair color in the ad, and when Scar claims it's a rule he just came up with, she assumes it has something to do with his ex. Like someone would date Mr. Lonely Dragon here. Her comment, nevertheless, triggers his memory of his captor, disgusting him instantly. But if he claims it's cause of his ex, he will get her to leave. He doesn't mind and plays along. Looking like she actually feels bad for him, she assures him she understands, and he is pleased with this, certain she will be leaving soon. When it comes to blonde people, he can't control his emotions, meaning there is no need for him to adapt when there are plenty more people who'd need the job. However, while he consoles himself silently, Lucy heads over to the table, grabs a knife, and she offers to shave all her hair so he can feel comfortable around her. Scar, the grumpy dragon, is left scared and bewildered by her relentlessness. Once they both calm down, they get to have a little talk, allowing him to reveal to her that he is a half-blood dragon. The tale gives that away. Plus, he can't transform into his full reptilian form. He is stunned she didn't know this and questions her desire to work for him. Yet she makes it clear that she isn't interested in details. She only has her mind set on the pay he is offering. Added to that, her village is at the far end, meaning information like this hardly ever gets to them. All her knowledge comes from the dragon souvenirs they sell at her village, souvenirs that Scar doesn't look like, since he is a half-blood. Looking back, she remembers how he stopped her from shaving her head and turned a blind eye to all the bandages she has on to look like she was severely injured. All that makes her conclude that he is a good guy deep down. Still, she seems sensitive, meaning she has to tread carefully around him. With her thoughts all over the place, she watches him eat the meal she whipped up, pleased that he is eating so well. When he is done, he looks depressed and she asks if it was to his liking. Scar, visibly upset by the horror he just consumed, complains that he only rushed the food because it's been a while since he ate a proper meal. He fired his last maid long ago, surviving on vegetables ever since. By his standards, she is a terrible cook. It's a harsh comment, but back when she was younger, she played house with this kid who said the same thing when she made a play meal. She misses those days and remembers them leaving a bright smile on her face that makes Scar feel uneasy. Aside from her cooking, he is about to complain about her ability to clean when he notices she did a good job with the table. His plan to scold her falls flat on his face because unknowingly to him, while he was knocked out, she cleaned, took stock of supplies, familiarized herself with the layout of the mansion, and more. Bewildered by her admission, he stares blankly at her as she promises to do even more if he hires her. Frightened by her determination, he knows she has killed his plan to find fault in her and fire her. She looks insane. More insane than someone desperate for money. But instead of hiring her, he searches for a flaw in her. Most of his search comes up empty, until he spots a ring on her finger and asks if she is married. She agrees that she is, adding that she is doing all this so she can save up money and buy a house for her and her husband. Honestly, it looks like an act to get the job, and if it is, it works. By nighttime, she heads to her assigned room, finding it covered in so much dust that she has to give it some good cleaning before she rests. Staring at the ring, she can't believe it worked, and it bagged her the job. See, it was all an act. The ring belongs to her mother, and she only wears it to keep men away from her. Still, it got her the job, so whatever. She celebrates the new job and high pay, thanking her mother wherever she is. Meanwhile, Scar lies in silence and clear displeasure. He doesn't feel good about her. Nonetheless, he got a written pledge from her and believes she won't make a move on him because she has a husband. Even if she does anything funny, he can just kick her out. A solution that gives him comfort and allows him to lie down peacefully. Before falling asleep, he recounts her bandage fiasco that made her look like a mummy maid and smiles. She is a strange woman. He isn't cool with her hair color, but it's all good. He can just avoid looking her in the eyes. There are a lot of disadvantages here, but he pulls out one advantage, the hope that Lucy will be the one to appear in his dreams and not his captor. He was wrong, sadly. The creepy guy came to haunt his dreams once again. That's not our Lucy's business. All that matters to her now is the change in status. She is now employed, enjoying her first morning as a maid. It feels epic. She still has her hair unshaved. she agreed with her master and just had to stay on her lane. She also signed this weird memorandum of secrecy that she has to honor. All his rules make her see him as a noble type dragon, as opposed to the rumors. Lucy concludes that the rumors may have been spread by ungrateful people who pissed him off. Away from that, she gives his rules a little more thought and recalls what an agent from the employment center told her. He promised her that if she could seduce a dragon, she'd earn a fortune. The agent also wanted to be her connect and make it happen if she was interested, but she obviously declined. Fast forward to now, and she is working for a dragon she knows is financially loaded. The salary he is offering gives that away. It only makes sense that many of his previous maids came to seduce him and not do the jobs they were hired to do. That'll explain his grumpiness and his stern rules. But who goes into another person's bedroom? Even if someone did, she is not that crazy and has no interest in any romantic attachment at the workplace, deeming it disgusting. For Lucy, everything sails by swiftly, and it's already been 3 weeks since she's been employed. Suddenly, one morning, Scar comes to her and begged her to leave for a bit, promising to pay her. She's taken aback by the news, especially because of the weather outside. Assuredly, he declares that he only wants her to take a few days off, head to the village and come back after a bit. He advises Lucy to see this as a mini vacation, yet it's clear something is up with him, from his labored breathing. Curious, Lucy demands a reason for his request, but he drops the "it's none of your business" line on her. Added to this, he advises her that when she returns, she shouldn't come out, even if she hears a loud noise. Nonetheless, she can come out if she wants to avoid getting hurt like last time. Lucy, visibly shaken and saddened by the news, took solace in the large bag of coins Scar left for her. Sure, he had told her to take a few days off, but the funds he left her with could last her for even a month. Suddenly, she starts thinking about the source of his money. He is no noble, but he might be doing something scandalous because he goes out sometimes and comes back with soiled clothes. Finally, she considers the chances of Scar not valuing money, and that's also a wise point of view. She planned to head into town like he instructed, until the devil whispered in her ear. Yeah, we all know this is a lot of money for Lucy, who has never seen this much before. So it wasn't hard for her demons to convince her to stay back in the mansion and save the money instead of spending it. After all, the chances of her and Scar clashing were slim. He stayed in the Far East while she stayed in the Far West. Without any supplies or proper planning, Lucy stays back, hiding under her bed, deciding to fast and pass the time in her room. If she gets too hungry, she'll drink the water she boiled the previous day. As minutes turn into hours, the whole staying back instead of taking a break is something she starts to question. Regardless, his suggestion of a vacation was rather sudden. The way she sees it, he is the one who needs the vacation. Lately, he has been acting strange, nibbling on the 5-star meals she has been making recently. Maybe he's sick or something. She considers every possible, but then she looks out her window and spots the full moon sitting in the sky. Again, she recounts the warning she got about staying away from the mansion on full moon nights. Finally, a new possibility comes to her mind. His sickness might have something to do with the full moon, but won't that make him a werewolf? Oh, that doesn't matter in the end. But last she checked, a person needs more care when they fall sick. It's tempting, but she promises herself that no matter what she hears, she will obey and not go upstairs. Okay, in case you forgot, Lucy came to the mansion on a full moon night, and that didn't go so well. It's starting to feel like déjà vu, with a fiendish aura in the air, followed by loud screams for help. What happens next is initially uncertain, but it lands Lucy amid debris again, bleeding and holding Scar's hand. Based on how much debris is on him, he is probably knocked out. But how did it come to this? Obviously, we don't get our answer immediately. In fact, it gets even more confusing to see Lucy lying on some properly trimmed grass in a serene environment. When she wakes up, even she is confused, getting more confused when she spots a different mansion on the horizon. No matter how she looks at it, it's not where she works, and she tries to piece things together. Last thing she remembers is hearing her master scream, some loud noise and more. Out of panic and concern, she ran in the direction of the noise and not away from it. At the end of the noise that came from her master's bedroom, she spotted him on the floor, covered in rubble. She frantically tried to clear the rubble and checked his pulse to see if he was okay. Before she could discern that, however, like on her first night, a shard knocked her out. Even so, all that doesn't explain why she is here, unhurt and uninjured. She quickly concludes she is having a lucid dream. Still, it's no time for her to be lying around sleeping, which is why she starts searching around for a way to wake herself up. Truly, she is worried about Scar, intending to help him when she gets up. But she gets distracted by some rattling sound. It's obvious chains, making her suspect a dog is imprisoned close by. To help the dog, she follows the sound, leading her to a basement. For someone who laughs at the face of danger and rushes towards commotion, for the first time, Lucy actually stops to think before stepping in. On her way down, she has this unsettling feeling covering her. It feels like she is stepping into a place she shouldn't enter. with things feeling more strange as she proceeds. What kind of dream is this? She wonders, hoping it's all nothing, only to meet a rather disturbing sight. It's some blonde guy draining a young boy. We all know that Scar and his captor that troubles him every night, so she is in his dreams right now. She might not know that yet, but that's not weird. What's weird is that his captor seems to know what's up with Scar's life at the moment. While draining him, he talks about the maid he hired for a huge sum of money. He feels it's not a good idea. Even so, that's not his problem. His problem is actually the money he is going to make from the blood he has taken. He is glad he is now a rich person and everyone will respect him, not noticing when Lucy picks up a hammer and approaches him. Why would he? When he is so focused on money and power, laughing maniacally, until she stops him by dropping the hammer on him. Literally. The force causes him to pass out with a bump on his head that would sing for days, while Lucy goes to save little Scar. Before getting down to business, she observes him and suspects he might actually be her master. If he is, she is certain he'd be mad if he got to know she dreamt of him like this. Little Scar, on the other hand, mistakes her for his captor, but changes his mind when she saves him and starts sprinting off. With nowhere to go and her head clouded by her chivalry, she declares that anywhere is better than here and heads off. Lucy manages to get out of the dream, but remains unconscious, not by her will, however. Soon, it feels like she is getting licked. How? There is no dog in the mansion, a realization that reminds her of the lucid dream she had as well as Scar. She is stunned back to forceful consciousness and discovers it was Scar. Awkward, right? Yet he acts like it's nothing, merely acknowledging the fact that she is awake. Scared and confused, Lucy screams, wanting to know what's going on. Maintaining his cool and calm persona, he asks her to hold still because he isn't done. She doesn't hold on, like he asked, pulling back before complaining that he is not an animal and only animals kick people. Besides, it's not like licking will heal her injuries. Shockingly, it does, leaving her bewildered again. Since her hand is okay, she recalls having been bathed in debris and sustaining a head injury. Her head should hurt, but it doesn't. Does that mean he? No. She can't think of that right now. What she does dwell on is the possibility of dragon saliva having healing properties. She airs out her guess, making him blush shyly, suspecting that she already knew this before she came. He soon realizes she didn't, as told from the clueless look on her face. It's all good nonetheless. But what isn't good is the fact that she is here when he gave her money to go out. Clearly seeing that she's in trouble, Lucy decides to tell the truth instead of giving excuses. With her head bowed, she begs for forgiveness, confessing that she decided to hide and save the money he gave her. Her confession prompts him to ask her if she is possessed by money or something. Sensing that her disobedience would get her kicked out, with tear-filled eyes, she intensifies her begging, adding that she didn't enter the room or break the agreement. She didn't even get to his bed, but collapsed by it. Clearly stressed, Scar decides she actually didn't break any rule, but that's not the elephant in the room right now. The elephant is Lucy appearing in his. He wants to know how she did it. Lucy is confused, but he presses on, demanding to know if she used magic or is an undercover mage or wizard. Fortunately for her, she knows about mages and wizards, and convinces him that if she had those abilities, she wouldn't be working as a maid. He agrees with her so easily, but still, she feels very strange. Looking back, she wonders if holding his hand before she passed out had something to do with her entering his dream. She apologizes profusely for doing so, promising him she only did it to check his pulse. Meanwhile, Scar actually gets it. Earlier in his life, his body was cursed. The curse makes him have nightmares, and because she touched him, he sucked her into one of them. Concerned, Lucy asks if he will be okay. Curses are a serious thing after all. According to him, he'll be okay. But if he were human, his life would be in danger. With care in her tone, she expresses more concern for him, but he ignores that, tagging her as nothing more than a greedy human trying to silence a rebellious moneymaker. The comment hurts, but she still can't believe the kid in the dream was her master. She doesn't want to hear any more of this, as it sounds like it has a heavy story behind it, but he won't listen. When she entered his dream, she saw most of his body, and he wanted her to take responsibility for that. Lucy doesn't mind taking responsibility, doing this by preparing a room on the east wing of the mansion for Scar. Her room is down the hall now, leaving her to wonder if it'll be safe during the next full moon. According to Scar last night, the accident happened because while dreaming he was tossing around in his sleep and accidentally activated his magic. For a human, what's just tossing off a blanket because of a nightmare is actually him tossing fireballs, and if she is away from the house next time, she will be safe. This only happens on full moon nights when his mental defenses crash. Unlike other nights, on that night he can't escape the nightmare, and is forced to keep sleeping even though he is going wild. For safety purposes, he made it clear that in the ad it was stated that no one should be sent on full moon nights. It all made sense to her at that moment. The warning of the man at the employment center. Instantly, she felt ashamed, as not only did she ignore the warning, but she shamelessly tried to get hired by acting severely injured. To punish herself, she ended up offering to enter his dreams every month and deal with his nightmares. If he had peaceful dreams, everyone, including the house, would be okay, right? Hearing this made Scar blush even harder. Nevertheless, she couldn't discern the look on his face and his change in mood last night. By morning, his mood stays the same when he refuses her offer. Confused, she argues that she isn't even charging extra for the service. But that's not it. He just isn't comfortable with people seeing him vulnerable, without clothes. Still, she insists, promising to cover her eyes and whack his captor. Her persistence falls on deaf ears, but she presses on, reminding him that he had said that the full moon was his most painful time of the month. If she helps him, she can not only save the house, but also ease him from wearing himself out. She doesn't want him breaking in the long run, and from the look on his face, he doesn't want that either. Nevertheless, he also doesn't want her pity, but she explains that it's not pity, she is actually worried about him. She doesn't want his mind to snap and suggests solutions like a hobby, a friend, or even emotional support. All suggestions she rules out in no time, deciding what's best for him now is a lover. The look on his face says he doesn't welcome the suggestion, but she presses on, advising him to glam up to improve his chances of finding a mate. On top of that, she wants to know his type of girl, bringing up the maids he once had and hoping that Scar liked certain qualities of one of them. Unfortunately for her, all he does is tell her it's not her business. Later in the day, Lucy is back to cleaning like she was hired to, her mind deep in thought of how he scolded her and told her to get back to work. His response at that moment reminded her of the real reason Scar locked up and has so many rules. It was because his former maids used to sneak into his room to seduce him. The audacity to do that still doesn't sit well with her. But that aside, she thinks she is being a problem too. Like Scar had said, she is too nosy, but we can't blame her. It looks that way because she is looking for ways to help him somehow. Even a lowly maid can save her master if given the opportunity. Suddenly, she remembers the man in Scar's dreams and suspects that he knows how to break the curse. She guesses Scar should know where he is and is willing to take a day off during the next full moon to track the creep down. If she finds him by doing whatever it takes, except seduction, she is sure she can get him to break the curse. When she gives it some more thought, she discovers it can't be that easy to get to this guy. If it were then, Scar would have tracked him down and stopped the cycle, but instead he remains trapped like this. Lucy gets so worried that she suddenly feels a pain in her chest. It's a pain worth causing her to collapse, but she fights through it in order to keep her job. In the process of fighting through the pain, she spots a book on the floor. She didn't notice when it fell, and picked it up while wondering the type of books her master reads. This one is a kiddie's dictionary, sparking up the suspicion that he has a child hidden somewhere. Upon closer inspection, her mind is blown instantly. It gets so bombed that she has to go to Scar himself for answers. Before letting the cat out of the bag, she confirms that it was he who got the books to study. Once that's confirmed, she expresses her shock that he is interested in romance novels. Romance novels? Scar argues that the books he got are about curses or demons. At least that's what he asked the clerk at the bookstore for. He had no idea every book in his study was a best-selling romance novel. Well, Lucy can understand where the mix-up is coming from. Romance novels with a touch of curses and demons can be mistaken for the real deal. On top of that, the clerk sold the books under the guise of them being rare and hard to find, charging him a fortune. In truth, all those books are still available in the market. Hearing this pisses Scar off, but Lucy tags it as a mistake caused by ignorance. According to her, even the dictionary isn't necessary. It's a kiddie's dictionary after all. But her mind changes when he confesses that it wasn't a mistake. He got it to learn human language. For a dragon, a different species, it's not an easy task, and although he has been at it for a while, he's still a slow reader. Lucy assures him it's all right. She takes note of his efforts and offers to teach him how to read, as well as go shopping with him. She can pull it off because there's less cleaning to do and an hour free every day. Scar shyly accepts the offer, concluding that married women are nosy and agreeing to come with her tomorrow, when he is free. He has no plan to stay cursed forever. Meanwhile, she thinks it'll be fun for them to shop and read together. Lucy is glad he agrees, and the following day they head to the busy market in search of the books about curses and demons. Luckily for them, they find what they came for. Apart from that, she is elated to see the town so busy. Meanwhile, Scar doesn't look so thrilled. Maintaining his disguise, they walk through the market with him stating that the book might just be a waste of time. Lucy agrees, but doesn't count out the fact that it might actually be useful for them. She plans that they read it together when they get home, and for some reason that makes him blush too. To fight the feeling, he takes the book from her, claiming it's safer with him, since he has fewer chances of losing it. His move to hide his emotions ends up exposing them even more, leaving her to compare an elder brother who cares a lot but is trying to act like he doesn't care. It's all good. but she has one more stop, a tattoo stand. She wants the owner to help her remove the tattoos, citing that it's ominous and might be the cause of some nightmares. During their time at the shop, she acts like Scar is her husband, and although he doesn't show it at first, it's too much of an act for him. He starts panicking, but things get out of control when the store owner offers to place pigment on it, since he can't really do anything else. Lucy needs Scar's permission for this, but when she asks, referring to him as honey, he panics and bolts as quickly as possible. His excuse being that putting pigment on it is useless. Lucy, in order to keep up with the act, apologizes for her husband's behavior. According to her, he is shy around strangers, but she pays the man regardless. The shop owner, touched by the kindness of a wife, decides that she can't go empty-handed. On that note, he gives her some info about the tattoo. He lets her know that he sees the tattoo as a product of black magic, and he felt weird the second he saw it. Lucy, suspecting that this is the source of the curse, asks if he knows anything about breaking one. He doesn't, sadly, but knows someone who does. As they discuss, and he offers her directions to the place she needs to go, Scar, who has stopped running, senses something is off about the area. He can't tell what it is, but I guess that it has something to do with the angry cloaked man who passes by him. He looks very suspicious and may probably resurface later, but for now, Lucy comes to get Scar so they can go. In no time, they are at the market searching for their guy. It isn't easy, however. They have to meet a store owner for directions, but he is reluctant to speak until Lucy offers to buy a flower. The flower she picks, however, is none other than a confession flower. According to the store owner, it can be used to catch a cheating husband, a detail that makes Scar feel uncomfortable immediately. She decides to go through more of the man's stock until they get interrupted by a dwarf in a cloak. He bumps into Lucy rudely, and Scar is forced to intervene, warning him not to bump into someone's wife like that. It's no surprise that this guy is the suspicious man from earlier, and he refuses to back down or show remorse. His rude response and bragging about his magic pisses Scar off, to the point that he almost tosses a fireball at him, but Lucy stops him. From the way the man behaves, it's clear he is a sorcerer, and Lucy, through kind words and her good looks, gets him to hear them out. Meanwhile, Scar doesn't trust the man, Grand Sorcerer Doji, as he tags himself. Why would he? When he senses mediocre magical energy from him. From a quick scan, it's obvious that his soul has low value, and so demons shouldn't be interested enough in him to lend him their power. There's a lot more he doesn't like about this man, especially the fact that he stares at Lucy pervertedly. For that, he wants to punch Doji once it's all over. While he puts this in mind, Lucy is discussing terms with Doji, promising him 1 million coins for useful information about the tattoo and 500,000 for a lead. Intrigued by the offer, he asks to see the tattoo. Once revealed to him, he bursts into uncontrollable laughter, pointing out that this is indeed the work of a top-tier sorcerer. Each mark showed the creator's intention to control him. Gladly, he knows the person who designed the tattoo, as their sorcerer's circle isn't that big, and he knows only one person with this particular design. He'd tell them, but for what he deems a small fee. That fee, however, is not money, but some quality time with Lucy. According to him, a woman like her is rare. This should be a straight no, but out of concern, Lucy wonders what to do. If she refuses immediately, they lose a major lead, but that doesn't mean she can accept his offer. What will she tell this filthy man who doesn't care about her claims that she is married? Well, that's a question she doesn't even have to answer, because Scar comes up with a better answer, taking the man by the neck. He warns Doji to refrain from his folly, but the pervert doesn't listen, still pitching his idea on the table like it matters. Scar now sees him as a fraud who has been scamming people like this for a while. He knows that with a little squeeze, he'll erase Doji from existence. I mean, the man isn't of any use to the world as it is. Sadly, because of Lucy, he spares the creep and leaves with her. As they leave, Doji catches a glimpse of Scar's tail, and a sinister smile is formed on his face. He's been looking for the dragon, and now he knows his weakness, Lucy. Annoyed, Scar, still holding on to Lucy, marches through the market, while she tries to assure him that she didn't want to accept the deal. She only felt they should have heard Doji out, but he's not okay with that. Clearly enraged, he declares that he can't stand trash like that and never wants to hear about him again. Lucy, probably frightened by his reaction, agrees, and they head home. At home, she recalls her experience with Scar at the market. His terrifying gaze and power that made her feel threatened. Yup, he is definitely a dragon. Why did she think she could interfere in his life? Why? She is ashamed, understanding that now the best thing to do is keep her distance and act like a proper maid, a ghost that shouldn't show her face to her master. As weeks pass, Scar notices the distance, secretly longing for her company, but it's better this way. The best, in fact, even though it's a bit awkward. Now that she's minding her business, her master doesn't get angry again. All she wanted to do was be more helpful, ignoring his hatred for humans, something she will no longer do. Lucy can tell Scar is very patient with her and doesn't want to overstep. Suddenly, she remembers she was supposed to read to him, but is that still a good idea? Maybe not, but she can't tell right now, because she is feeling dizzy and her vision is wavy. Added to that, she is overheating, wondering if her master used some magic before she passes out on the floor of his study. Scar, unaware of what happened, sits in his room, thinking about the changes Lucy has been exhibiting. He fears she changed after they came back from the market, because he lost his temper. We can't blame him. He was pissed at Doji, who wasn't interested in the money in the first place. From the perverted glances he made at Lucy, he could tell she was his desire from the start. Doji is indispensable. There are plenty of humans he can get information about his curse from, but he can't say the same about Lucy. Yep, he's longing for her, as we suspected. He fears he might be thinking about quitting, the one human who stayed even after he destroyed his room. Before she passed out, she thought about how patient he was being. Now he is sitting here thinking about how patient she has been toward him. He fears she is packing her bags right now. He refuses to sit quietly and let such an asset walk out of his life. He leaves his room, hastily making his way through the hallway, planning on apologizing and maybe explaining a little to her, anything to ease her fear. First, he has to find her, and it's not easy because of how quiet the mansion is. It hasn't been this way for a while, and after searching every corner, he fears he is too late. Maybe she ran away. He thinks, especially because she isn't in her room, but her luggage is there. To him, she must have left her luggage to aid a silent escape, an act he considers to be polite. Others left with some of his property they'd steal on their way out, but not carrying anything makes him tag her as innocent. He clenches his fist in rage, pissed that he didn't get the chance to say anything to her after the incident at the market. Merely looking at her room and how much of a downgrade it is, he sees more reason for her to leave. Believing she saw him as a bad employer, he gets to work, tidying the room. He didn't care before she arrived, and although he is a problem, he blames the people who made the mansion too. They gave him this place to keep him stationed at the border to stop invasions, only to make the servants' room so poor in quality. Guilt washes over the once grumpy dragon, who fears his best servant has made her way back to the village. Even if she has, he can't chase after her because that'll make her fear him more. Giving in to defeat and the chances of never seeing her again, he is glad she at least picked out some books for him and goes to his study to check them out, even if it'll take years to interpret them. When he gets there, he finally finds Lucy lying on the floor and a rush of shock and gladness overwhelms him. Although she didn't run away, it's obvious something is wrong, and she, in labored breaths, apologizes for collapsing, saying she felt dizzy. To try and claim she is okay, she tries to crawl away, her mind set on the hallway and the chances of it being cooler than here. He doesn't welcome that idea. However, he helps her into her bed. Nevertheless, she doesn't recognize the room, because of the changes he made. With her condition getting worse, Scar begins to panic more, not knowing how to handle her. Since as a dragon, he has never gotten sick. He knows nothing about humans. His mind paces about, asking questions ranging from, do we have medicine in the mansion? To what kind of sickness is this anyway? Too many questions when the only answer he has ever had to himself was licking. Not knowing what else to do, he apologizes and kisses her. Warning, this is only for healing purposes. Scar is a noble dragon. As he heals her, she feels like she is in some peaceful dream, which she likens to paradise. She decides to rest a little, not minding whether this is a dream or not, even when she feels the kiss and the dragon's medicine he lets into her mouth. It's so peaceful that she keeps experiencing the dream, until she realizes she swallowed some liquid and wakes up. She feels the heat in her head going down, and from the look on his face, she questions whether it was all a dream or if there is a touch of reality. Now that she is awake, she has so many questions, but it all gets swallowed up by the softness of her. She soon realizes that if this comfort she felt wasn't a dream, then everything else wasn't. He sees she knows what happened, so he gets to explaining, stating that he missed her to save her. There was no medicine at home, and he wasn't sure she would have been alive by the time he got back, if he went to get a doctor. Scar apologizes for kissing her, pointing out the fact that she told him she is married, but he did what he had to do to save her life. As for her work, she's done for the day, and he wants her to rest. When he leaves, Lucy buries her head in her blanket in shame, telling herself it was just a medical procedure. Her master hates humans, but he cured her because she is his employee, and any other reason. I'm guessing that's what Scar also tells himself. He is also ashamed, scolding himself for getting carried away for a moment. He fears that if she doesn't accept his explanation, she will see him as a perv, and he doesn't want that. Added to this feeling, he is unsettled. The dragon who never cared about what others thought is suddenly caring. Why? This woman has changed a lot about him since she arrived, leaving so much on his mind that he decides to take a nap in order to feel better. During his nap, he is thrown into the environs of his usual nightmare. But this time, instead of the usual creep, it's Lucy, with an unknown man making out before him. Dream Lucy is all about showing him he is wrong for being in love with her. The chances of him taking this seriously are high, but he doesn't show it at first. Instead, things actually ease off, even though they feel awkward in another sense. Like how she feels awkward because she served him good and their hands almost touched. Her mind goes back to the kiss and she reminds herself it was just treatment. From her point of view, Scar looks okay, but slightly guilty. Suddenly, he asks permission to quiz her. Lucy, who doesn't mind being asked anything, promises to respond if she can. To her bewilderment, he asks her what her husband is like. Confess. Tell the truth. There are a lot of ways to handle this, but Lucy chooses to keep lying. She fears this question has something to do with the kiss. As long as it'll help ease Scar out of her guilt, she will describe her imaginary husband as convincingly as possible. It's a solid plan, but all she can say is that her husband is kind. Not the response Scar was expecting. He is not impressed, and when she notices this, she decides to give a more elaborate explanation. It doesn't end there, however. Scar wants to know what his job is and why she is the only one working here. Added to that, he wants to know why she hasn't talked about visiting him since she arrived. She's in a tight spot, yet she remains cool as ever, claiming her husband is at a boot camp for butlers. He'll get promoted if he completes it, but she didn't fit in and they agreed to spend a year apart. To add more flair to her story, she pulls out her ring and blabs some rubbish about how they plan to save money and get a house of their own. She misses him and has no idea what he is up to right now. Somehow, her half-baked story is enough to make Scar believe her and apologize for being nosy. From that day on, he never asked about her husband, and she hopes the story got him closure. Even if it didn't, their reading sessions going forward were a smooth sail, even though some of the literature was complex and not too easy to read. When they land in Dragon Ecology, she wants to know the chapter he'd like to know about his kind for her to read out to him. After observing her, he decides that what's most important is finding out if a half-blood like him can mix with creatures of other species. He also wants to know how he was born, and that takes Lucy to the reproduction section. After reading out loud what the book has to say on dragon reproduction, she can tell it's a fraud. She comes across something called polymorph, and according to the book, dragons need that to produce with other species, although not having it doesn't stop them from mating. Diving into that section of the book leaves Scar feeling uncomfortable, and he wants her to skip it. She does so, but doesn't fail to point out how happy she is that she can mix with other species, with his closest match being humans. Once that's settled, they continue with the reading. But then a suspicious bat comes by, hanging by the window and watching them. Scar, sensing its presence. Immediately it's sensed, it flies away, returning to its master, none other than Doji. While they continue reading, Doji looks rather expectant, but what's this creep doing here? Days go by peacefully, and Lucy is living her best life. Scar has gotten her a new bath, and she's worried about getting spoiled. If this keeps up, it'll be hard for her to leave after a year like she agreed. Her relationship with her master is becoming better. Recounting their last reading session when he got shy as they discussed reproduction, she smiled, not knowing why he reacted that way. She learned something that day, specifically the potency of the dragon's blood over their saliva, but smiles again because of his shy reaction that day. He's cute, but he's suffering, and thinking about his suffering takes her mind back to Doji, the perverted mage. Although he wants to have her for a night, she plans on visiting him again to see if he really knows about the source of Scar's tattoos. If he does, it's worth looking into, and she plans to offer him a date and not a night together. Suddenly, she sees something fly by and rushes to see what it is. Initially, she guesses she saw wrong, but she actually didn't, as there is someone behind her with herbs in his hand, assuring her this is real. Oh no, a kidnapping. But Scar doesn't know about this. He is too busy reading with a cup of tea by his side. Usually he would have passed out by now, but the tea Lucy makes keeps him up and gets him going. Because of her, he finally feels relaxed. He hasn't felt this relaxed in ages, but there has been some tension between them lately. He concludes the tension is because of how proper she is. He can tell she is ashamed about the kiss, and somehow that's a good thing, like the sweet tea she makes. Perfect, not bitter at all, oozing care, unlike what his previous maids brew. Sadly, her contract is limited, and he sits here thinking she doesn't want to stay long because of her husband. A husband she doesn't even have. He is envious of the guy, regardless, suspecting he is a gentleman, and that's what the ladies are into these days. Even so, he can't see her imaginary husband can't be seen as a gentleman for sending his wife to this lonely place. He curses the man when he hears a knock on his door. He knows it's Lucy, but she should be asleep by this time, meaning something urgent must have come up. When he opens the door, he meets her dripping and half-dressed, making him question himself, wondering when he fell asleep. This must be a dream. The Lucy he knows would never do this. Nevertheless, it feels more realistic as time passes by and she closes the gap between them, demanding that she came so he can hold her tonight. Did the herbs brainwash her? She steps closer, closing the space between them, and his mind immediately rejects the moment as reality. The Lucy he knows would never stand this way before a man she does not love, so he convinces himself that what unfolds must be a dream. Her calm permission only strengthens that belief, and whatever restraint he has been holding on to finally gives way. He leans in and kisses her, allowing the feeling he once denied to surface freely. The memory of a few days earlier drifts through him, back to the medical procedure where his self-control faltered. He had meant to pull away quickly, yet the kiss had lingered longer than intended, leaving guilt in its wake. Now, with no resistance from her, he allows himself to move past hesitation. He treats the moment like a nightmare destined to demand a cruel price later, but he accepts that risk without regret. All he wants is this fragile sweetness, even if it is brief. As the closeness deepens, Lucy suddenly weakens, dizziness washing over her. She asks for a small measure of his blood, and Shah agrees without pause. To him, offering it willingly is far better than letting it be taken by force. He gives it to her, and she receives it without fear. His thoughts return to the book he once read, the one that speaks of dragon's blood as a cure for wounds and a gift that stretches life beyond its natural span. The price, however, is always paid by the dragon, who loses a fragment of their own lifespan in the exchange. Shah accepts this truthfully. If giving a part of himself allows Lucy to smile a little longer, then the loss means nothing to him. When she expresses love, the weight of the words unsettles him. Unsure of his own emotions, he becomes awkward and unsteady, moving with the innocence of someone discovering closeness for the first time. Despite the uncertainty, he stays, letting the intimacy unfold with tenderness rather than confidence. Afterward, he asks if she is all right. She assures him that she is, and he admits that he is worried about not controlling his strength properly. She reacts by calling the concern rude and poorly timed, the topic far from romantic, but she quickly withdraws the remark, clarifying that she is only joking. Despite this, he sits up, uneasy, noting that the sweet part of the nightmare has lasted longer than he expected. He then wonders how it will end this time, questioning whether her husband will appear again as before. She looks at him in confusion and asks him to explain what he means. Before clarity comes, Doji appears before her. He tells her that since she willingly shared everything with him, he will now give her a command. From that moment on, she is to go to her master, embrace him, and demand his blood. Even as the words settle, she wonders why she is listening to someone like him at all. He asks if she enjoyed the time they spent together, and the change is instant. She turns into a doll. Scar reacts in shock, reaching out to pick it up, but a bat suddenly flies in and snatches it away. He demands to know who the bat is. The creature replies calmly, stating that it allowed him to spend a good night with his beloved. Scar bristles at the tone, questioning if that is how it chooses to address him. The bat then reveals that the body he touched was never Lucy, but a magical doll. The realization unsettles him, and he guesses that the voice belongs to the suspicious pig. The bat corrects him, revealing itself as Doji. He adds that Scar would already be in hell if not for the value of his blood. Irritation flares, yet Scar presses on, demanding confirmation that Doji never touched Lucy, warning that he would tear him apart if he had. Doji challenges the threat and calmly states that Scar likes the maid. Silence follows. Scar tries to deny it, but Doji points out that over 100 maids were sent to him and rejected without hesitation, all dismissed with open hatred, yet Lucy was accepted almost immediately. He even comments that Scar has excellent taste. Scar attempts to defend himself, but Doji cuts him off, saying the pretense has gone on long enough. He then asks if Scar wants to make a deal and openly admits his intention to make a fortune selling his blood. If Scar agrees, Lucy will be his whenever he wants. If he accepts, the doll will become Lucy after she is given a measure of truth serum, leaving her mind hazy and making everything feel like a dream. Scar feels a surge of anger as the bat instructs him to leave the door unlocked should he agree to the proposal. In a burst of frustration, he tries to burn it, but the bat escapes effortlessly. Moments later, he rushes to Lucy's side and notices her body is cold, regret hitting him for not realizing sooner. He lifts her carefully and carries her to the bed, using her towel to dry her. Seeing the blanket on the bed soaked, he decides to fetch a fresh one for her. The Doji's proposition runs through his mind, and he thinks it insane. It essentially forces Lucy into an experience akin to dreaming of intimacy with someone she does not want. A thought he finds unbearable, and he cannot accept her enduring that. At dawn, Lucy stirs awake. Scar explains that he had to remove her tower and dry her by the fireplace, assuring her that nothing inappropriate happened. He decides to go fetch some clothes for her. Lucy reacts with surprise, recalling the vivid, shameful dream she had. Embarrassment floods her, intensified by the fact that her master witnessed a side of her body she has never shown anyone. The overwhelming mix of vulnerability and shame leaves her reeling as the morning light filters into the room. Later, as she goes about her chores, his distraction causes her to stumble and fall. She feels a lingering unease from the previous night's dream, apologizing quietly to herself. She has never imagined being in such a relationship with a man before. Though her master is undeniably handsome, she has never considered him as a romantic partner. Yet she cannot deny the strange, incomparable joy she felt in the dream when she embraced him, though she refuses to call it love. She reminds herself that her master despises humans, and if these thoughts are discovered, she might end up among the senior maids. Still, she thinks it is difficult not to be drawn to him. Once accustomed to his presence, one notices his surprising kindness, despite the intimidating tail and frightening tattoos. She cannot name the feelings stirring inside her, but she is determined they remain hidden, especially her enjoyment of the dream. After finishing the cleaning, she checks on him. Noticing that he skipped meals, she grows concerned. Finding the door unlocked, she peeks inside and sees him in a pitiful state. She hurries to his side, calling his name, but he does not stir. Worry gnaws at her as she wonders if he is trapped in nightmares from a curse. She recalls that the next full moon is still far off, the time when his mental defenses weaken and nightmares strike hardest. She reasons that the worsening is not the moon itself, but the lowered defenses, perhaps caused by what happened the previous night. He had warned her never to enter his dreams. She fetches a bowl of water and a cloth to wipe his face, sitting on the floor beside him, checking on him periodically. 3 days pass, and fear creeps in. What if he never wakes? Despite her anxiety, she lies beside him on the bed, holding his hand. Sleep eventually overtakes her, and she dreams of herself standing before a mansion. The mansion feels impossibly real, blurring the line between dream and reality. She wonders if her master is somewhere inside, trapped in his child form, and a surge of determination rises within her. She plans to confront the awful man and rescue them both, just as she had done before. Her search begins in earnest, room by room, yet no presence of him is sensed anywhere. The last possibility is her own bedroom, though it seems unlikely he would be there. A sudden sound draws her attention. Her heart tightens with unease as she wonders what the man could be doing with Scar inside. Peeking through the doorway, she freezes in shock. Scar is kissing a woman who looks exactly like her. Surprise and disbelief wash over her. The woman protests, telling him to let her go while he calls her Lucy. Confusion rises as she questions why he is doing this. He produces her ring, and she instinctively tries to take it back, but he burns it before she can. Tears spill down her face. She demands to know why he is going this far. He speaks as if to confirm her ignorance, then guides her onto the bed and touches her lips. She resists, voice trembling, insisting that she hates those who force themselves on women. His resolve does not waver. He reveals plainly that his feelings for her run so deep that he never wants to let her go. Meanwhile, the real Lucy lingers at the doorway, peeking cautiously. She opens it slightly, and Scar's eyes fall on her. Panic grips her, and she bolts, desperate to escape, though she cannot understand what is unfolding. In an instant, she awakens and finds herself facing Scar, who remains unconscious. She resolves to leave quickly, hoping to pretend nothing happened, but he stops her and asks how much she saw. She admits that she saw him holding a woman, explaining that she stepped away to avoid seeing more. He presses further, and she fabricates that she didn't actually see the woman because it was too far away. She then wonders aloud if it was someone who worked there previously. Scar meets her gaze with a serious, unreadable look before turning and walking away. Regret fills her as she apologizes, explaining that she was worried after he had not woken for days. She offers to accept any punishment. Scar reminds her that she violated the agreement by entering his dreams without permission. She protests that it was not her intention, but he responds that intentions no longer matter. The act is done. She is told to pack her belongings immediately. Though the agreement stipulates leaving without a penny, she is allowed her earned pay, and a carriage is specially arranged to take her to the village. She considers the gesture surprisingly kind, though she recognizes the foolishness of thinking forgiveness was guaranteed even after breaking the rules. Her thoughts drift back to the dream, recalling his statement that he likes her. She doubts she heard correctly, since the punishment seems to contradict it. She acknowledges that her recent behavior made things harder for him, and observes that Scar's nightmares appear to be his most terrible experiences, possibly visions of tormenting the weak or becoming like the man he despises. Yet she places the blame on herself, realizing that her presence and her body made both of them aware of themselves. Accepting responsibility, she leaves, stepping into the carriage. Maid questions if she is the one he saw at the market recently, and why she is going out alone at such an hour. She responds with surprise. She cannot believe that the shabby maid she saw at the market now stands before her looking refined. She explains her earlier deception, telling him that her name is Lucy and that she used to work as a maid. She adds that she has since quit and questions whether he has any business at the mansion. He confirms he does, but mentions a more urgent matter, offering to accompany her because he cannot let a beautiful lady travel alone. The journey to the border town of Horsetail will take 2 hours. She thinks that if they engage in small talk along the way, she might learn something useful about her master's tattoo. Despite having been fired, she agrees to ride with him. During the trip, the mage apologizes for his behavior last time, noting that he was drunk. She finds it amusing since he does not smell of alcohol, and reminds him that everyone makes mistakes. Curious, she asks how he found the mansion. He responds that he had business with the master and knew he was a dragon as well. He mentions that most servants do not last more than a week there, and asks if that had been her experience. She laughs, explaining that she survived a month and that her firing was her own fault. He admires her resilience and mentions that his household has been looking for a maid as well. His wife has been frustrated that no suitable applicants apply, and they even offer triple the usual pay. Lucy thinks to herself that no sane person would work for a mage who can curse people out of existence. She reassures him that life is bound by fate, so he should not be disheartened. The right person will appear eventually. He gives her a side glance, questioning what business she had at the dragon's mansion, and notes that she should have refused him face to face. He adds that he was meant to buy information from her. She wonders if it was about the tattoo he mentioned before, and thinks he should have asked for more money, given her master's wealth. He remarks that, as a lowly mage, he has a code and will not betray a comrade, since curses are a form of karma and must be dealt with by those responsible. Lucy finds the logic twisted, considering that he seemed ready to sell it before. When she alights the carriage, he gives her his card, telling her that she can come to the address if she changes her mind, and that he will keep a place ready for her. She wonders who in their right mind would go to such a shady place. Thinking of her master, she concludes that she no longer cares. Whatever happens, happens. Scar appears at her window, eyes sharp with concern. He asks if she has lost her mind. She responds that the pay at the mage's place isn't as high as his offer, but still enough to be worth considering. He interrupts sharply, questioning why she would even think of going to the mage after what happened in the back alley. He promises he will be careful this time, insisting he won't touch her again and pleading for just one more chance. She firmly declines, stating that she's not a dog to obey whenever he calls. She is done with places where she could be fired on a whim and intends to find stable employment. He reminds her that she was fired for breaking the contract, even after signing a written pledge. She accepts responsibility and wishes him well, hoping he finds someone better. With that, she bids him farewell. After a while, he departs, leaving her to fall back onto her bed. The next morning, she arrives at the gate of the mage's house. The sight is better than she expected. There's even a swing, and she wonders if they have children. Nerves prick at her, but she reassures herself that she has nothing to lose and can run if anything feels off. Soon, the mage opens the door, greeting her with excitement. She says hello, and he invites her inside, noting that his wife will be happy to see her. Inside, Lucy meets the mage's wife and 3 children, noticing the striking resemblance among them. The woman expresses gratitude that Lucy came, explaining that managing the children has been difficult and no one suitable has applied for help. She leads Lucy to her room, located in the attic on the 2nd floor. Apologizing for its messiness, she explains that the family had used the room previously. Lucy smiles, commenting that she likes how spacious it is. The woman asks her to get changed and come down to help immediately, as they are short on hands. Lucy agrees, expressing that she looks forward to working with them. Thus begins a new chapter of her life. As she goes about her chores, she is reminded to avoid the magic circle, a rule she takes note of. She guesses it is because the household knows it would be difficult to find a new maid if they lost her. Despite some oddities around the house, the working conditions at Mage Doji's home are surprisingly good. Meals are shared, hot water is available daily, and her bed is just as soft as the one she had before. Most importantly, Doji, her employer, neither makes advances nor seeks private moments with her. She suspects he was truly drunk the first time he saw her, though she does not consider him a good person. She recalls the wife's words about a recent big deal and the promise of fair pay, along with her plea for Lucy to stay with them long-term. The children's requests to play with her keep her busy, preventing unnecessary thoughts from lingering. A fleeting memory of Scar crosses her mind, but she quickly shakes it off, reminding herself that here is good. She concludes that her mind dwells on him because she left on bad terms, and embarrassment lingers longer after a big mistake. Concern for Scar creeps in as she remembers the days he could not rise from nightmares, prompting her prayers that he finds a proper, diligent maid. Her thoughts wander briefly to the unfinished matter of his underwear. He dislikes maids touching it and burns it with magic, leaving a mountain of men's undergarments piled in storage. She wonders why such thoughts occupy her and reassures herself that he has likely hired someone new by now, and they are probably getting along well. She notes that the current master is now the fat man sleeping downstairs and resolves to focus on her own life, believing they will never meet again. Yet, looking out the window, she notices a tall, lean shadow, likely the new master tending to late-night work as a mage. She lies back in bed, telling herself it has nothing to do with her. Meanwhile, the bat appears, expressing thanks for coming such a long way. Scar glares, but the bat continues, noting the difficulty of the journey. Scar cuts him off, demanding to know Lucy's whereabouts. The bat reports that she is doing well, and Scar would be impressed if he knew how well she is treated. He adds that if she were truly precious to him, she would remain close at hand, but sending her away was meant to keep her safe. Scar dismisses the chatter and asks why he was called. Mage's demand is clear. He seeks wealth and power, and in exchange for leaving Lucy unharmed, Scar must allow him to draw blood. Scar questions whether Mage found a wealthy customer and remarks that trying to take Lucy by force is futile. Mage points out that he observed her contentment with her new life and questions whether she would trust a former master who expelled her or the current one who treats her well. Overreach could shift distrust into lasting hatred. In Doji's life theater, he is asked to reveal the secret to his success. He chuckles and admits it is diligence. Over the past few years, he had tried repeatedly to get his hands on dragon blood and sell it. He explains how he even put a maid in a position who did nothing but wash her face, bribed other maids who merely wanted to be hired, and eventually partnered with a placement agency worker to split profits. Yet, the dragon proved impossibly picky when it came to women, causing him repeated losses. He survived by doing odd jobs in the back alleys just to get by day to day. Looking back, he considers it good memory. An opportunity seemed to find him in the end. When asked how he turned his life around, he laughs, calling it a gamble of a lifetime. He spread rumors on the black market that he had dragon blood, then accepted an advanced payment from a potential buyer. Using the money, he purchased a ridiculously expensive clay doll that could turn into human form if fed blood. In the end, he placed a human soul inside it to achieve his goal. When questioned about ambitions beyond what he had achieved, he admits that a man of high status is always popular. More than money, he desires to become a royal court mage and live comfortably for the rest of his life. He adds that the foundation for that future has already been laid. The next morning, Lucy sits by the swing with one of the mage's children. When the child climbs down, he thanks her for pushing the swing and says he is going to the kitchen for snacks. Left alone, Lucy marvels that it has already been a month since she started working here. Being surrounded by lively children makes her forget her worries. Before, she had been too preoccupied with taking care of herself to consider starting a family, but now she thinks it might not be so bad after all. She recalls her mother apologizing and revealing that her father had abandoned them. But for now, she feels that everything will be okay as long as her future marriage is not miserable like her parents. She resolves to be open to finding a good partner. Her thoughts drift to Scar. She questions why she is thinking about him, knowing he tends to solve problems with force rather than communication, and decides he is too immature to be a life partner. She scolds herself internally for judging him. Suddenly, a child hands her a drink, claiming it is wild strawberry juice from the market. She notes that strawberries are not in season and thanks him. He insists she drink it all, having gone through trouble to get it, and she agrees to drink it after work. That night, she awakens in darkness, unsure of where she is. She remembers drinking the strawberry juice and notices her body feels disconnected from her mind. Realizing the situation mirrors past experiences, she concludes it is a dream. The bat appears, informing her that she's in a state where she cannot stand not being embraced by a man. It tells her that her partner will arrive soon, instructing her to allow him to hold her and receive some blood. She recognizes the voice as Doji's, and knowing it is an order, she prepares to comply. At that moment, Scar stands before her. She is instructed to embrace the man and take some of his blood. She steps closer, initiating a kiss, but he suddenly pulls her away and shouts at the pig, reminding him not to touch Lucy. The bat responds sharply, claiming Scar is not performing his duties properly, and that numerous complaints have come in from customers lately. It criticizes the way Scar is acting, noting that people pay well to come discreetly, and they should follow proper protocol. Scar questions what this has to do with him, but the bat explains the reason behind his actions, and threatens that he will give Scar a doll instead, hoping it will motivate him. Scar refuses, insisting the idea is ridiculous and demanding that Lucy be sent back. He asserts he will never yield. The bat warns him not to be so certain, pointing out that Lucy's real body remains in his mansion, and asking if he isn't afraid of the consequences. Scar remains silent, and the bat laughs, concluding that Scar likes her more than he admits. It reveals that Lucy thinks this is a dream and enjoys it, questioning why Scar resists. And Scar insists that someone else should be brought instead of her. Lucy, surprised, questions whether he finds her insufficient, but he clarifies that it isn't what he meant. The bat praises her appearance, but notes that it has reached the limit of its patience due to Scar's continued refusal to accept the doll. Scar yells for the bat to stay away from Lucy, threatening him. Mage's gaze falls on her, and he makes a comment about the ring on her hand, then urges Scar to hurry. Scar apologizes, leaving Lucy puzzled and longing to embrace him. Mage's voice echoes, instructing her to embrace the man. She hesitates, recalling that he said he didn't want her to. Turning around, she begins to walk away, then opens the window, smiles, and jumps down, noting that she had wanted to do this earlier. Doji can hardly believe she disobeyed his suggestion. Lucy reflects that this act, taking decisive action, is exactly what it takes to wake up from a dream. Lucy opens her eyes and is shocked to find Doji beside her, catching him in what looks like a compromising act. He quickly explains that it is a misunderstanding. She had been sleeping in the cold, and he was merely trying to button up her shirt. Infuriated, she slaps him, pushes him away, and unleashes a torrent of insults, declaring that she is quitting immediately. Doji questions where she thinks she's going and whether he allowed her to leave. She orders him to get out of her way, but he refuses, claiming that she and the dragon are his treasures and asserting that he has never let thieves like them go free. Anger flares within her, and she throws something at him, intending to make a scene loud enough for his wife and children to hear. She wonders if he can still reveal his true nature in front of others, but he laughs, saying he does not care. He is the only one in the house. Her eyebrows lift in disbelief. She had been interacting with his wife and kids all along. Doji smirks and reveals that the entire household was an illusion. He had made a pact with a demon, granting him the power to create such illusions. He questions whether she expected the house to be a safe place, noting that he merely played the parts of his own family members. He challenges her, asking if she thinks he cannot conjure illusions she does not wish to see, just as he had shown her the ones she desired. As an example, he snaps his fingers to reveal a picture of Scar, explaining that he designed the tattoo carved into Scar's body and sold it for a steep price. Fury overtakes her, and she seizes him by the throat, pinning him down. She demands that he tell her how to break the curse. He refuses, claiming he will not provide the answer without payment. She argues that the person who wants the curse lifted has more money than they could ever pay, offering it as incentive. Doji coldly refuses, stating that he does not want money but desires her body instead. He pushes her away, producing an object and declaring that, being in his house, she is essentially within his grasp. Since she caught him, he vows to cherish her even more. Meanwhile, an unknown figure moves with great speed toward Mage Doji's house, their approach swift and urgent. Lucy quickly notices that there is only one way out of the attic, the ladder leading down to the first floor. That escape route is immediately blocked by Doji, who is holding a syringe in his hand. She does not know what substance it contains, but instinctively understands that if it is injected into her body, everything will be over. Faced with that certainty, she decides that becoming his plaything is far worse than risking death. As Doji approaches, Lucy turns toward the window. Jumping out feels like the only option left to her. Doji watches her movement and comments that she is brave, then cruelly reveals something that freezes her in place. He explains that her former master must be in shock at that very moment, utterly confused, because he witnessed the woman he cares about jump from a window and shatter into pieces. Lucy is stunned by those words. Doji continues, stating that what she believed to be a dream was not a dream at all but reality. The realization hits her hard, leaving her shaken and confused. She struggles to accept it, unable to understand why Scar would obediently follow Doji's orders or submit to such a situation. Before she can fully process it, Doji rushes toward her. Acting on instinct, Lucy throws herself out of the window. As she falls, she clings to the thought that what Doji said must be impossible. However, before her body can hit the ground, strong arms catch her midair. Scar has arrived in time, holding her firmly and declaring that he will not allow himself to witness her fall again. Lucy stares at him in disbelief, then wraps her arms around him tightly. Overcome with emotion, she apologizes, blaming herself for what he endured and admitting that she had no idea about any of it. Scar responds calmly, making it clear that his actions were his own choice and not her responsibility. Lucy cries, still unconvinced, but he explains that something felt wrong, prompting him to fly there at full speed. Seeing her fall nearly stopped his heart, and he immediately checks to make sure she is unharmed. Lucy reassures him that aside from her clothes being slightly disheveled, she is fine. Relief quickly turns into fury within Scar. Dark thoughts cross his mind as he considers dragging Doji to a remote place and disposing of him without Lucy ever finding out. Before he can act on that plan, Doji crashes violently onto the ground nearby. Lucy realizes that they have managed to catch him and hurriedly tells Scar that Doji claimed to be the one who designed the tattoo carved into his body. Doji bursts into loud, unhinged laughter. At that moment, something clicks in Scar's mind as he pieces things together. Without explaining further, he instructs Lucy to remain where she is and wait for 3 minutes. Then, with sudden speed and focus, he takes off after Doji, beginning the chase. Out in the courtyard, our guy Scar makes catching a thief like Doji look like child's play. He tells Lucy that dealing with a punk like him isn't even worth stressing over before vanishing into the night sky. Lucy stands there anxiously watching magic explosions light up above the mansion, praying everything goes smoothly. Seconds later, Scar drops back down from above, casually carrying his intruder all wrapped up in heavy ropes. Doji is completely knocked out, and seeing Scar handle things so effortlessly gives Lucy a massive wave of relief. She can't help but realize just how terrifyingly strong Scar really is when he isn't holding back to shield hostages. And honestly, you've got to respect how smooth he acts. Once they step inside and stand over the magic circle on the floor, Lucy blushes slightly and suggests they head further indoors. Scar explains that he spat on Doji's worst burns to heal him, assuring her the guy will wake up if they just wait. Lucy offers to fetch water to splash on his face, but inside, her heart starts pounding violently. The thought of how much power Scar held back purely for her sake hits her deeply. Moving into the interrogation room, Scar agrees that water will work. Taking advantage of the quiet room, Lucy nervously asks him flat out if seeing him in her dream vision was actually reality, like Doji claimed. Hearing that direct question catches Scar completely off guard, causing him to visibly flinch. Scar instantly flusters, trying to cover up the truth by insisting Doji is just lying, but our girl isn't buying it for a second. Seeing right through his terrible cover story, Lucy gently cups his face with both hands, softly telling him he's garbage at lying before asking if the captive really did nothing to him. Realizing he can't hide it, Scar somberly relents and reveals Doji's dark backstory. Doji was actually the assistant to the man who exploited Scar in the past, which was how Doji knew dragons weren't mythical legends, but walking gold mines of magical ingredients worth a fortune. Learning this overwhelms Lucy with pure guilt. She sinks down onto the floor, crying out why Scar gave in to a scumbag like that when he could have ignored the threat, sobbing that she deserves whatever happens to her. At this point, I don't even blame her for feeling overwhelmed, but Scar refuses to let her carry that weight. He calmly takes responsibility, explaining she only caught Doji's eye because she worked at his mansion. He tells her straight up that he acted because he wanted to and begs her not to worry. Still, the weight leaves Lucy weeping, feeling completely crushed because she can never repay such a massive debt. That guilt drags her mind back to her tender dream memory. She vividly recalls Scar kneeling right in front of her, interlocking his hands with hers and sincerely confessing his feelings. She remembers the heavy pouch of gems dropping onto the floor with a clatter as he told her to take the money, buy a decent house, and live a happy life, promising to stay at the mansion and wait until enough time passed to separate from or outlive her husband. Staring at that mental image of the gem pouch, Lucy ponders her life's goal. A house was always her ultimate ambition, yet she questions whether buying one with money from a lie could ever bring real happiness. Taking that treasure meant permanently destroying her connection with Scar, leaving her unable to ever show her face to him again. Asking herself how she truly feels, she clenches her fist in firm resolve. A warm flash of Scar, smiling kindly, fills her mind, hitting her true feelings with sudden shock. The lingering memory of their passionate kiss sends her heart thumping violently. She realizes her genuine desire isn't a house bought with lies, but to remain by Scar's side forever. Her epiphany is abruptly broken as Doji groans back to life on the floor, muttering within his rope bindings that she's shaking like a leaf. Scar turns to the bound prisoner, asking if he's finally awake. Wanting to spare her from what comes next, Scar calmly tells Lucy to leave quickly, stating he has nothing suitable to show her from now on. Refusing to step back, Lucy firmly grabs the sleeve of his dark cloak, insistently declaring that she's staying too. She points out that Doji will likely prove to be a nuisance who refuses to talk. Honestly, that completely flipped her switch. Before anyone can react, Lucy's demeanor shifts into something terrifyingly sinister. A sadistic blush flushes across her cheeks as her green eyes glow with intense fury. Cheerful yet deeply unsettling, she offers to go find torture tools for them to use, telling Scar to keep interrogating him in the meantime. Taken completely by surprise, both Scar and the bound captive stare at her with wide, shocked white eyes, utterly horrified by her display of sheer bloodlust. Lucy starts off on an urgent personal mission to track down that specific mind-clearing herb Doji fed her earlier. Sure, she jokes to herself about finding a crazy torture tool to give Scar a scare, but deep down, she really just wants that plant so she can speak clearly again. Unfortunately for her, after thoroughly searching every single corner of both the study and the lab, she comes up completely empty-handed. Refusing to give up, our girl moves her search over to the main mansion bedroom. Inspecting the floor closely, she notices a section of wood that feels completely off to the touch. Stepping onto a creaking board uncovers a hidden hatch hidden right beneath the surface. She scoffs at the third-rate hidden setup, but descends the dark stairs anyway into a secret basement laboratory. At this point, she is kicking herself for ever being foolish enough to accept a job in such a suspicious mansion to begin with. And honestly, who could blame her? But as she explores the creepy basement room, her eyes land on the suspicious herb hanging right above an old desk. Curious, she opens a wooden drawer and finds old papers. They turn out to be the original dragon research manuscript she read alongside Scar earlier. Turns out she was so deeply absorbed in the content back then that she never even checked the author line. She realizes with pure disgust that Times evil human wrote it. She quickly decides to bury this unpleasant discovery deep down in her memory. Just then, sudden loud banging echoes from upstairs, prompting her to rush back up to investigate the noise immediately. Ascending quickly to the magic circle chamber, Lucy finds Scar standing sternly over the fallen doji inside a glowing magic circle near an overturned chair. When a thoroughly perplexed Lucy asks if he just said something out loud, Scar flatly denies saying anything at all. Looking over at the chaotic scene, she figures Doji must have provoked Scar yet again, thinking the annoying guy is just completely impossible to handle. Before Doji can pull any more tricks, Scar shoves that suspicious herb right down his throat with a heavy gulp. Almost instantly, the potent magic kicks in, sending Doji straight into a full panic as weird, unnatural sounds hijack his mind. Under the influence of the powerful mind-clearing spell, he becomes completely subdued and hypnotized. Talk about terrible timing for him. Scar does not waste a single second of this opportunity. Seizing the golden moment, he interrogates Doji directly without hesitation. He calls him a filthy pig, and demands to know if he was the one who drew that cursed tattoo onto his body. Subdued and completely unable to resist the magic, Doji confesses his crimes right on the spot. He reveals that a wealthy scholar client hired him to craft a terrible curse capable of breaking a mighty dragon's spirit, officially admitting his direct role in creating the magical mark. Continuing his forced confession under the spell, Doji explains the terrifying origin of the dragon's nightmare curse. Turns out he used his own specialized magic to suggest inflicting endless nightmares onto the dragon just to weaken its spirit over time. That way, it would be easy to draw its blood while it slept to kill two birds with one stone. The scholar client absolutely loved the sinister idea, but putting it into practice brought up a massive practical problem. See, a dragon's skin heals so fast that even deep needle marks close up almost immediately. Because of that insane natural defense system, the tattoo had to be applied strictly during full moons when the dragon's spirit was at its absolute weakest point. Honestly, that's pure nightmare fuel. Even worse, to hinder its rapid healing factor, they created a vile pigment using deeply repulsive ingredients. They mixed sloughed skin from venomous cannibal snakes with the blood of humans who exclusively ate human flesh. Lucy listens in total horror as these nauseating details spill out into the room. Seeing how visibly shaken she is by the revelation, Scar gently touches her shoulder to reassure her while keeping his intense focus locked directly on the interrogation. Doji goes on to explain that after the scholar died, he spent years searching for the dragon they raised until he finally tracked down rumors of a dragon residing on the border. Hearing this drops a sudden wave of realization onto Lucy, leaving her completely stunned to learn her former employer is already dead. But rather than letting Doji ramble on any further, Scar interrupts the detailed story, demanding the exact method required to remove the profane tattoo curse from his body once and for all. Doji reveals that because the pigment was created using such deeply profane ingredients, removing it entirely requires using the exact opposite magical elements to erase what was inscribed on his skin. Right as this crucial revelation is delivered, a single pearl rolls across the floor with distinct clicking sounds, while a heavy storm rages outside the mansion. This marks a pivotal turning point in their search for a cure. Loud crashes echo through the dark night air as Doji escapes through a glowing magic portal to escape the chaos. Our girl is in total shock, sniffling uncontrollably because they were so close to reaching their goal. Holding her close as they cross over, her master calmly figures out what went wrong. Given how much cash was involved, he realizes their target must have had an accomplice pulling strings behind the scenes. Seeing how crushed she is over losing out, he gently tries to console her. He reassures her that she can always find another guy like that down the road, and urges her to rest now that dawn is here. But when morning rolls around, sleep is the absolute last thing on her mind. Sitting up in bed at the inn, she can't take her eyes off the money pouch resting on the table. Worry completely kept her awake all night. She practically tricked her master to get her hands on that cash, which makes spending it feel totally wrong. Honestly, that's rough. That leaves her stuck with two very difficult choices. Her first idea is to just swallow her pride and ask her master to hire her again. But the second she thinks it through, she realizes how shameless that really is. Keeping a woman he actually likes around solely because of money would be total emotional torture for him. On top of that, going down this path means coming clean and confessing the truth. She breaks out in a nervous sweat just imagining his reaction. In her head, he completely loses his cool, shouting at her for pretending to be single just to score cash and declaring he can never trust her again. That horrifying thought completely overwhelms her, so she shoves a blanket over her head in pure distress. That leads her to option 2, getting a job at a completely different house while staying in touch with her master, lying that she finally broke up with her husband. It would spare her from revealing the truth right away, but deep down, she knows it's just stacking one lie onto another, forcing her to live a fake life forever. Still, looking down in deep thought, one thing is crystal clear. She refuses to cut ties with her master. Her mind fills with warm memories of their time together, like browsing the market, sharing meals, and enjoying simple, happy moments side by side. As evening comes around, the two of them stand together on a hill near the station, watching the sunset while she holds her heavy suitcase. Her master tries helping her figure out her trip home, explaining that she can book carriages right at the inn. He asks where her village is and if it's a long journey. Our girl hesitates, awkwardly admitting it takes about 2 weeks with transfers. When he asks when the final ride leaves, she pretends she isn't really sure. A carriage rattles right past them, and he offers to handle the reservation for her himself. Talk about terrible timing. Hearing that instantly sends her into a total panic, and she practically begs him not to do it, leaving him utterly confused and wondering if she's feeling sick. As time slips away into the night, carriage drivers shout out departure times for all the surrounding villages, until the final driver announces the absolute last trip of the evening. As the cold wind blows past, the two of them are left standing together outside the inn in complete silence. In the quiet night, her master finally speaks up, noting that he thinks that was the last carriage. That's when our girl turns to him and holds up a dried truth herb leaf she sneaked from the mage's lab. He's totally baffled and asks why on earth she has it. She explains that she has something vital to tell him, but knowing he'd struggle to believe her on her word alone, she found no better way. She announces her plan to eat the herb right now so he can ask her whatever he wants about her husband or anything else. But just as she raises the leaf to her mouth, her master fiercely snatches it straight out of her hand and crushes it to pieces, letting the bits crumble into the dirt. Stern yet completely sincere, he looks right into her eyes and declares that he has zero need for something like that, promising he'll believe anything she tells him. Deeply moved, her eyes flood with tears as her whole face turns bright red. When she tremblingly struggles to get a word out, he gently tries to give her space. He calmly suggests going inside to sleep and talking tomorrow, even offering to get a separate room like yesterday. At this point, I don't even blame her. But before he can leave, she reaches out and squeezes his sleeve, insisting that one room is more than enough. Surprised and blushing with a thumping heart, he turns back around to ask what she means. With a beet-red face, she screams out at the top of her lungs that room 1 is plenty. Night settles quietly over the inn bedroom. An off-screen voice echoes loudly outside the entrance of the inn suite. The polite host points out that while this happens to be their very last available room, it is a special suite reserved exclusively for couples. The speaker notes that the luxurious suite occupies the entire floor, ensuring all the complete privacy they could ever need. With a respectful bow, the host takes their leave and leaves them alone to enjoy their time together. The heavy wooden door creaks open with a sharp clack, and a sudden gasp sounds as the pair steps inside. Lucy carries her suitcase into the spacious room, looking completely composed on the surface. Beside her, Scar is a flustered mess. His heart is hammering away in his chest with a rapid, chaotic pulse. Hesitating near the entrance, Lucy turns around to address Scar directly. She tells him that if he was merely trying to save money on separate rooms, he really did not need to do so. She just wants their final moments together to be good memories. To ease his obvious anxiety, she assures him she will happily sleep on the sofa tonight. Turning around, a quiet click sounds as she locks the heavy door behind them. Hearing the lock engage, Scar asks what is wrong. He points out that she has been acting strange this entire time. Lucy gazes solemnly into his eyes. She remarks that he finally has nowhere left to run. Talk about an intense way to open a conversation. Scar tries to reply that this whole situation feels almost deliberate on her part, but before he can finish his thought, she cuts him off completely. She reveals that she can finally confess the truth to him. Surprised and taken aback, Scar stammers, asking what on earth she needs to confess. Lucy reaches out and grabs his dark cloak. She raises her hand to show a silver ring adorned with a brilliant green gem. With a quick, smooth movement, she slides the ring off her finger. Scar looks on in absolute shock as he catches sight of the fine inscription carved inside the band. It reads, "To my beloved wife," followed by the name Mary. He stammers out the name in total bewilderment. Lucy apologizes sincerely, admitting she has been lying to him this entire time. She opens up about how she wrestled with whether to tell the truth or cover it up with yet another lie. In the end, she realized this honest confession was the only conclusion she could reach. Acknowledging that her confession will surely disappoint him, she insists she must do this anyway. Scar asks if her real name is not Lucy after all. She clarifies that Mary was actually her mother's name. The ring is a cherished keepsake left behind by her. Turns out, she only pretended to be a married woman to stop men from hitting on her everywhere she went to work. Lucy is coming clean now because he has always been so sincere with her. She could no longer bear deceiving someone who treated her with such genuine kindness and respect. Because of that, Lucy offers back his heavy money pouch. She reminds him that he gave her this money so she could return home and buy a house with her husband. But since that husband never actually existed, she refuses to keep the money. She knows that keeping it would make her no different from those who used him in the past. Startled by her sudden refusal, Scar asks why she booked only one room if she wants nothing from him. He points out that staying together in a romantic suite after his previous confession carries very clear implications. And honestly, who could blame him for being confused? Lucy reveals her true plan to him. She is leaving immediately to find another job somewhere else. She will not return home, nor will she rely on him anymore. She wants to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that she is not taking advantage of his generosity. Emotional yet fiercely determined, she confesses she was truly happy when he told her he liked her. She notes that while many men in the past only wanted quick fun, no one had ever confessed to her so sincerely before. Lucy bows deeply in deep gratitude, promising to write to him when she gets settled in a new place. As she tearfully walks toward the exit, she silently thinks that distance will help these lingering feelings fade away over time. But our guy is not about to let her walk out of his life like that. Desperate, Scar reaches out and grabs her hand, shouting for her to wait. He desperately declares he does not care if she uses him. He explicitly gives her full permission to use him as much as she wants, as long as she stays by his side. Lucy turns back toward him with a resigned expression on her face. She gently begs him not to throw himself away like this. She predicts he will definitely find someone good for him in the future. Refusing to let her go, Scar yanks her back forcefully. His heart is thumping frantically inside his chest. He shouts that he does not care about her apologies. He does not care whether she thinks he will be disappointed, nor does he care about her fears of using him. Demanding an immediate answer, he asks her point blank if she loves him. Lucy stands completely overwhelmed as her heart beats in a heavy, rapid rhythm. Squeezing her hands tightly and holding her breath, memories flash rapidly through her mind. She remembers serving a shy, blushing Scar as a maid while he sat quietly at his desk. Talk about an absolute emotional payoff. Opening her eyes, she tearfully confesses that she loves him. Crying joyfully, she adds that she does not want to leave him at all. Relieved beyond belief, Scar pulls her into a passionate embrace, sealing their true feelings with a sweet kiss. Inside the bedroom, the rest of the world completely disappears as our main couple gets caught up in a passionate kiss. But right in the middle of it, Scar pauses and asks her how far he's allowed to go, making it clear that if she wants to stop, he'll back off immediately. That offer instantly sends her heart racing. She starts trembling, hit by a sudden wave of nerves. Honestly, who could blame her? Deep down, she knows that if she loses her nerve right now, she might never get another chance like this. So instead of pulling away, she holds on to him tightly to make sure he stays. Reassured by her reaction, they proceed to get intimate. Afterward, wrapped up in each other's warmth and affection, they hold hands while Scar openly lets all his true feelings show, making her feel happier than she's ever been. He gently reaches out to stroke her cheek, and the warmth of his hand instantly puts her at total ease. He looks at her with so much pure affection that her heart practically overflows. At that exact moment, all her lingering doubts completely vanish. She looks him straight in the eyes and casually drops the heavy truth on him, confessing that she loves him. That sudden confession catches him totally off guard. His eyes go wide in genuine shock, completely unprepared for her to say something so direct. Talk about an absolute power move. But once the initial shock wears off, he leans right back down and presses a deep kiss against her lips. Softly answering her confession, he tells her that the feeling isn't just mutual. It's far beyond anything she could imagine, as the night slowly slips away into the bright morning light. When the sun finally comes up, our girl stirs awake under the bed covers and rubs the sleep out of her eyes. Sitting right beside her on the bed is Scar, completely calm and casually keeping watch over her. He softly asks if she's awake, and after she confirms it, he checks in to see how she's feeling. She assures him that she's fine, but then she notices something off and asks if he even slept a single wink. Turns out, he didn't. He seriously admits that because of his curse, he didn't want to risk disturbing her sleep. Blushing slightly, she reminds him that she would have been fine, even if it meant jumping into his dreams to swing a hammer for him. But he just shakes his head, saying that on a day like this, he'd rather not risk it. Thinking back on everything, she mentions how weird it feels, pointing out that their whole relationship seems to have changed overnight. Scar gets a thoughtful look on his face and asks if it really feels that way to her, adding that their relationship actually has a ways to go before it's truly changed. Before she can even figure out what he means by that, he reaches over, takes her hand, and plants a gentle kiss on it. Looking her dead in the eye, he completely throws her for a loop by proposing to her right then and there. She's so wildly caught off guard that an absolute scream of pure disbelief bursts out of her, echoing straight out the window into the morning air. We open up in the bedroom where Lucy is panicking her head off, trying to talk common sense into her master. She argues that he can't just throw out a marriage proposal like it's nothing, considering they've only known each other for 2 months and lived together for 1. What if she turned out to be a scam artist playing him for everything he's worth? But our guy doesn't flinch. He casually tells her that if he loves her this much, he doesn't care if he's being conned, because he'd still be grateful for such a beautiful dream. And honestly, who could say no to that? Before she can process that line, he smirks and pulls her straight down onto the bed. Her heart starts hammering, but she keeps arguing that she could be tricking him to drop his guard. The master just chuckles, and Lucy yells at him for taking her threat as a joke. Dropping the playful act, he holds her close and affectionately asks for her real answer. Blushing like crazy, Lucy admits it's totally unfair because nobody could refuse a proposal like his. Knowing he's officially won her over, the master smiles and gives her a smooth dragon scale as an engagement gift. Showing off his dark dragon tail, he explains an old memory of his mother telling him that dragons swap scales with those they love, making the scale a permanent part of their body in a dragon wedding ritual. Touched by the meaning, Lucy clutches the scale to her heart, swearing to cherish it forever and keep it close no matter what. Shortly after that moment, we cut to the two of them riding in a carriage down a forest path. They're heading toward Lucy's hometown at the southern tip of the realm so she can report the marriage news at her mother's grave. The master is completely thrilled, treating the whole trip like an exciting honeymoon. As they chat, he brings up wanting a physical mark to show everyone she's his, asking where people usually buy wedding rings. Lucy explains that tiny villages don't have jewelry stores, so they'll need to stop at a major city. Since her village is all the way down south, their route takes them right past the royal capital. Hearing that, the master asks if the royal capital is the biggest city where the king lives. Lucy agrees that's how it works, prompting our guy to casually drop a complete bomb. He offhandedly mentions that his only memory of the royal capital is burning the entire place to the ground. That single line completely halts the conversation, leaving Lucy staring at him in utter shock before barely squeezing out an, "Excuse me?" The master doesn't see why it's a big deal and casually lays out what happened. He says he usually doesn't care when humans fight, but that specific war was becoming a massive pain. The fighting was destroying rare books, wrecking local shops, and a curse expert got killed on the battlefield. That completely crossed the line for him. So he marched over, torched the royal palaces of both warring kingdoms, and warned both kings to end the war immediately if they wanted to keep their heads. Talk about an absolute flex. The war ended on the spot, and he boasts about it with a giant smile, leaving Lucy speechless at what kind of monster she's marrying. Freaked out, Lucy immediately suggests they stay far away from the royal capital. The master gets confused, asking why they wouldn't go to the biggest place for the best ring. Lucy reassures him that their feelings matter more than physical objects, so she doesn't need a ring. But our guy raises his fist in total passion, arguing that physical marks are crucial to keep unwanted pests away. Lucy wisely keeps quiet, choosing not to remind him that he used to be one of those exact pests himself. To prove money isn't an issue, the master snaps his fingers and produces a handful of gold coins, telling her he's got plenty saved up. Curious, Lucy asks how he actually earns a living. He explains that sorcerers constantly mess up experiments, summoning wild demons or creating monsters that lay waste to villages. Whenever the army can't handle the threat, they end up begging him for help, and taking down a single beast pays enough to live comfortably for a long time. Uneasy about leaving home for so long, Lucy asks where he keeps all that wealth safe. Without missing a beat, he casually admits he buries all his gold in the front yard and digs it back up whenever he needs cash. That simple line sends Lucy straight into full panic mode. Honestly, at this point, I don't even blame her for losing her mind. She shrieks in horror, unable to believe he didn't even store it inside the house. Screaming at the carriage driver to turn around immediately before a thief steals everything, she berates her relaxed partner as a giant idiot. But as she's losing it inside the carriage, we cut back to the quiet mansion gate, where a dropped envelope with a red wax seal lies silently on the ground. Eventually, Lucy and her master, Scar, agree to buy their wedding rings at a major city along their route. The moment they step inside a high-end luxury jewelry shop, our girl completely freezes up on the spot. The lavish interior, bright polished displays, and fancy high-class setting leave her totally overwhelmed, standing there frozen in place with wide, shocked eyes. Scar stays calm as ever throughout the whole ordeal. He casually notes that this store isn't even that impressive, but since she turned down going to the royal capital, it will just have to do. He gently tells her to go ahead and pick out whichever ring she likes best. However, the fancy atmosphere only makes her feel completely out of place. Flustered and deeply nervous, she admits she feels much better suited for scrubbing dirty floors than shopping somewhere like this. She even offers to wipe down a dusty counter just to do something familiar while he looks around the shop. At this point, you really can't blame her for losing her composure. Luckily, Scar isn't about to let her shrink away like that. He steps right in, grabs her hand firmly, and reassures her that she belongs here more than anyone else in the world. He even confesses that a shop like this isn't nearly good enough for her, explaining he originally wanted to buy her a ring from the biggest store on the planet. Encouraged by his gentle comfort, Lucy finds the courage to reveal her true desire. Blushing furiously, she tells Scar that she wants a ring set with a gemstone matching the exact red color of his eyes. Embarrassed by her own sudden boldness, she complains that he keeps saying these absurdly sweet, overwhelming things out of nowhere, making it practically impossible for her to focus on picking out the rings. To make matters even more embarrassing, she notices the store clerks giggling behind their hands about how sweet it must be to be young and in love. Lucy asks him when he became such a smooth talker, pointing out he was never like this before. This leaves Scar quietly wondering to himself what a smooth talker even means. Honestly, that's top-tier smooth talking without even trying. Ultimately, the pair custom orders matching gold rings inspired by their eye colors. Scar receives a green peridot ring to match Lucy's eyes, while Lucy gets a red ruby ring to match Scar's. The clerks inform them that the custom rings will take about a month to finish. This fits perfectly with their plan to pick them up on their return trip and delay the upcoming wedding until then. Reflecting on how far she has come, Lucy thinks back to her younger self, a poor girl who cleaned floors in a mansion, wondering what that child would say if she knew about this future. With their custom ring order officially locked in, their journey next leads them to Lucy's hometown, Land's End Village. Walking down a quiet country path, she cheerfully presents the rural landscape to Scar. She explains that it's just a small, quiet village situated at the southern tip of the continent, with absolutely nothing notable to its name. She laughingly admits it's somewhat embarrassing that there is nothing impressive to brag about. Scar listens attentively to every word, keeping in mind that her family is located here. Before long, Lucy leads him to a quiet graveyard filled with stone cross gravestones and kneels down solemnly before her mother's grave. Scar gently asks if her parents passed away from illness, causing Lucy to sigh softly and open up about her painful past. She reveals that her father left home when she was just 4 years old, claiming he would return after making it big, but he never came back. Later on, total strangers took their house, an event she still doesn't understand to this day. Squeezing her jacket hem tightly as painful memories surface, she admits her mother actually sold herself just to keep her fed. Then, when her mother fell ill, she introduced Lucy to work as a maid at the mansion. Honestly, that is just devastating to hear. Touched by her heavy story, Scar gently places his hand on her shoulder and holds her hand softly. He expresses true gratitude to her mother for giving Lucy life and protecting her so they could meet today. Tearful and deeply moved, Lucy agrees with him completely. Right around then, an older woman named Auntie Grace approaches, carrying a bouquet of bright wildflowers for Mary's grave. Recognizing Lucy in delight, she calls out to her warmly. Lucy greets Auntie Grace enthusiastically, introducing Scar as her partner and sharing that they are getting married soon, and came to break the news to her mother's grave. Thrilled by the news, Auntie Grace asks where they are staying for the night. When Lucy mentions they planned on finding a local inn, Auntie Grace immediately insists they stay at her home for dinner and sleep over instead. Lucy blushes with deep gratitude and bows politely. Beside her, Scar bows respectfully while feeling absolutely ecstatic on the inside, completely savoring the sound of Lucy calling him her partner. Later on, while walking near the village church, off-screen voices discuss how the local atmosphere has grown strangely restless lately, advising people to stay well-fed during grim times. Scar glances sideways suspiciously, as white-robed figures cast a glowing red magic seal directly onto the church doors, hinting at serious trouble waiting just ahead for our couple. Right off the bat, our girl Lucy and her master Scar make their way to Auntie Grace's cozy home. The second they step onto the porch, Grace greets them with open arms and pulls them right inside. As it turns out, Grace used to be Lucy's next-door neighbor back in the day. She shared a massive bond with Lucy's late mother, Mary. Both women were actually pregnant around the exact same time, which made them inseparable. In fact, when Mary passed away, Grace was the loving soul who stepped up to handle the funeral services. But aside from being the sweetest neighborhood auntie around, Grace also holds a huge reputation for loving a good drink. The moment her eyes land on the fine wine they brought over, she gets completely thrilled. She cheerfully points out that she already popped open some beer, suggesting they mix both drinks together for maximum impact. She warmly calls Scar by his name, urging both of them to take a seat and make themselves right at home, but then her tone falters just a bit. She casually mentions how tough it must have been to find quality wine around these parts lately. That is mostly because the local villagers have been totally on edge. Outside the window, suspicious whispers echo as bitter locals call Scar a shady outsider. Naturally, hearing those hostile words makes our guy flinch in discomfort. Seeing their uneasy mood, Grace drops her bubbly demeanor and shifts into a much more serious tone. She shares a disturbing rumor with them. People across the entire village have been randomly collapsing for no clear reason at all. Naturally, this sudden wave of illness has caused everyone to panic over a supposed dragon's curse. Things got so completely out of hand that elite palace archmages had to be brought in just to handle it. Hearing all of this instantly catches Scar off guard. He turns to Grace and asks if an actual dragon really placed a dark curse on this place. Grace lets out a heavy sigh and reminds him that since he is not a local, he would not know the dark backstory hanging over their heads. 2 decades ago, a massive abyss-black dragon suddenly appeared in the skies. It practically burned their entire village down to the ground in a wave of dark fire. The terrifying beast leveled every single structure in sight while demanding the immediate return of its kidnapped child. It threatened to burn the whole region to ashes if it did not get its baby back right away. The most heartbreaking part was that the helpless villagers begged for mercy on their knees. They insisted that nobody in town stole anything from the beast, but the dragon's child was never found anywhere. Because of that unstoppable rage, the casualties across the town were truly catastrophic. Grace even lost both her loving husband and her innocent child in the devastating flames. Hearing this tragic backstory hits Lucy like a heavy sack of bricks. She suddenly feels an unbearable weight of guilt crushing her chest. She admits with a shaky voice that she only knew the village suffered an attack long ago, without ever realizing how horrific it truly was. Grace notices her deep guilt right away and immediately tries to comfort her. She gently reminds Lucy that she was just a tiny kid back then, who happened to be away in another town with her mother when the disaster struck. Wanting to lift the heavy mood before they sit down for dinner, Grace apologizes for bringing up such a dark topic and urges them to eat up. But Lucy can barely swallow a single bite of her food. After taking a quiet, steadying breath, our girl decides it is time to be completely honest. She drops a massive truth bomb right then and there. Her partner Scar is not just some random outsider, but actually a half-dragon. By the time the group transitions toward the sleeping area, Grace has already chugged down way too much alcohol. She is completely passed out on her bed, snoring up a storm without a care in the world. Honestly, you can't even blame her for needing a drink. Looking at her passed-out host, Lucy quietly remarks on how heavily Grace drank during their meal. However, Scar completely understands why she turns to alcohol, given the sheer, unimaginable nightmare she lived through all those years ago. Lucy softly admits that despite the initial awkwardness, Grace is still such a good person for trying her absolute best to treat them normally. However, the moment they step into the quiet guest bedroom, all the built-up emotion finally crashes down on Lucy at once. She breaks into heavy tears, completely consumed by overwhelming regret over agreeing to come back to her childhood home. Talk about worst-case scenarios. She tearfully confesses that if she had known about the tragic dragon history, or realized that the cheap dragon souvenirs sold in town were actually the villagers' twisted idea of revenge, she never would have accepted the invitation in the first place. She feels absolutely terrible for dragging her master directly into a place festering with so much deep-seated hatred. Scar simply cannot stand seeing her blame herself for any of this. He gently pulls her into a tight, protective hug and kisses her affectionately on the forehead. He softly tells her that even if the whole wide world chooses to hate him, having her right by his side is the only thing that truly matters. He then gently encourages her to get some much-needed rest for the night. Because terrifying nightmares have been tormenting her lately, the two end up agreeing to share a double bed for the night. As complete darkness settles over the quiet house, Scar sits upright in bed, wide awake. His mind is filled with burning anger as he silently vows to take bitter revenge on a certain pig of a man once their upcoming official ceremony wraps up for good. Meanwhile, Lucy sits up in bed beside him, looking over at his silhouette with a heavy heart. She anxiously asks if he secretly dislikes her now, deeply worried that she represents the exact same wicked village that stole the dragon's innocent child. Scar immediately shuts that toxic thought down without hesitation, making sure she knows he could never possibly hate her. Relieved beyond words, Lucy softly murmurs about how terrible humans can be sometimes, quietly wishing she could stay glued to his side forever and ever. Hearing those deeply emotional words triggers a sudden, violent thump deep inside Scar's chest. At this point, our guy is fighting for his absolute life. Completely flustered, he buries his red face into his trembling hands, desperately begging her to go to sleep before his heart literally explodes. Late into the night, Lucy finally drifts off and falls fast asleep like a total log. But poor Scar lies wide awake right beside her in absolute agony, trembling violently with every single ounce of restraint he has just to make it through to the morning. Lucy kicks things off by giving us a quick update on where things stand for our main duo. Right now, she and her master are still hunkered down in the remote Land's End village, trying their absolute best to navigate a pretty grim situation. With the end of the year fast approaching, they've decided to throw a cozy little celebration together. It seems like the perfect idea, especially since the entire village is currently draped in a heavy, depressing vibe that keeps every single resident locked up indoors. But once their holiday celebration wraps up, they plan to pack their bags and head straight toward the royal palace in the capital. That major decision traces back to a heavy, eye-opening conversation over dinner with Auntie Grace. While holding her glass tightly, Auntie Grace dropped a sobering reality check on them about how brutal love between different species actually is in practice. Because of vastly different lifespans and constant misunderstandings, humans and monsters simply can't live together in peace. That's brutal. She even brought up a heart-wrenching example from the past to prove her point. The human husband of a female black dragon was actually beaten to death by a mob of angry villagers while he was simply trying to break up a petty fight. Listening closely to every word, Lucy can't help but reflect deeply on that female dragon's unimaginable agony after losing both her beloved child and her devotion-filled husband. What makes the story even worse is that right after her husband died, the dragon completely broke down emotionally. She lost her soul entirely, standing completely motionless like a stone statue until the royal army finally dragged her off to the capital. While Lucy still doesn't know what ultimately became of her, she strongly suspects this tragic dragon might actually be a close relative of Master. Because of that heavy revelation, both of them agree that investigating the royal palace needs to be their very next priority right after picking up their custom rings. Meanwhile, Master is dealing with a completely different dilemma of his own. With the upcoming year-end party right around the corner, he gets completely wrapped up in the human tradition of gift-giving, desperately trying to figure out what to give Lucy. Watching her quietly sew clothes in the corner, he spends hours brainstorming various options, but ruling things out quickly proves tricky. Giving her another one of his dragon scales feels lazy, and selling his own blood for extra gold feels completely insincere. The biggest problem is that Lucy never asks for material things anyway. She spent her entire young life saving every single coin, never having the luxury to enjoy anything extra or treat herself. In fact, he vividly remembers how she completely freaked out over the price of their wedding rings, literally jumping in shock until he gently persuaded her to accept them. That's exactly why Master decides to fetch the custom rings himself before their party even starts. By flying over to the capital alone, he can easily save her from a grueling, exhausting journey on foot. On top of that, since a private ceremony between the two of them requires almost no advance preparation, getting the rings early means they could even tie the knot that very same evening. So while Lucy sleeps soundly later that night, Master gently touches her hair, softly whispers that he'll be right back, and slips out quietly into the dark night sky. He flies through the thick clouds directly toward the ring shop in the capital. However, it turns out he ends up spending way more time stuck in a painfully long line inside the shop than he actually spent flying all the way there. Talk about terrible timing. Still, as he stands there admiring the gorgeous green gem ring resting on his finger, he blushes happily, wondering if Lucy panicked over his sudden disappearance while getting genuinely excited to finally become her official husband. Unfortunately for him, that sweet romantic moment vanishes the exact second he makes it back to Land's End Village. Right away, an eerie and unsettling wave of dread hits him squarely in the chest because the entire town has gone completely and utterly silent. Not a single human voice or footstep can be heard anywhere, nor can he hear even the faint usual sounds of nocturnal insects in the night air. That unnatural, suffocating quiet fills his heart with intense dread as he slowly approaches their front door. Stepping inside with extreme caution, his absolute worst fears are immediately confirmed. Lucy is lying completely helpless in bed, sweating heavily, and desperately gasping for air while stuck totally unconscious in a feverish state. At this point, pure panic takes complete control over Master's mind. Terrified beyond belief by her terribly pale complexion and weak breathing, Master rushes straight to her bedside. He frantically tries using his magic breath mouth to mouth to deliver life-giving energy and wake her up, but she fails to react or open her eyes at all. Before he can even process what is happening to his precious companion, a sinister, mocking voice echoes through the dimly lit room. The mysterious voice mockingly compares Lucy's agonizing state to how Master himself usually looks whenever he suffers from a horrible nightmare. Master spins around in total shock to discover a bandaged man in a dark hooded robe sitting comfortably on a chair with a deeply malicious smirk plastered across his face. The intruder calmly greets him, revealing that he deliberately waited around just to see if Master would actually return for Lucy. Immediately recognizing that chillingly familiar voice of his dangerous old enemy, Master's bright red eyes glow with pure, unfiltered fury. And honestly, who could blame him? Without hesitating for a single second, he instantly summons a crackling bright fireball in his bare hand, fully prepared to incinerate the intruder on the spot. But the bandaged creep just grins wickedly and slowly holds up a small straw curse doll, threatening to instantly strike Master down with a lethal curse while Lucy remains completely vulnerable and helpless in her sleep. We start off trapped inside Lucy's past memories, where things were rough right from the start. As a young girl standing alone in a quiet, shadowy forest, she held a straw doll with a heavy nail driven straight through its heart. A creepy voice began taunting her from the dark, sneering about how hard it must be to grow up without a father around. The voice mocked her endlessly, claiming her dad ran off like a rat right before everything went down. To make matters even worse, a shady villager confronted her distressed mother right after. He demanded to know if her husband was involved in that terrible mess. He harshly warned that if the rest of the town found out, their family would be completely ruined and thrown out into the cold, using that wicked threat to force her poor mother into total silence. That's rough. That kind of endless misery followed our girl everywhere she went. Years later, while working as a humble maid, she found herself cowering on the cold floor while an angry voice berated her relentlessly for not cleaning properly. Around that same painful time, she wept bitter tears over a tragic letter revealing that Mary had passed away from a horrible illness. The cathedral folks were practically foaming at the mouth with hatred, calling Mary impure and strictly refusing to let her be buried in the communal cemetery, leaving the heartbroken writer desperate to find another way. As if that wasn't already enough suffering, the mansion's arrogant young master cornered her in private. A loud metallic clank echoed through the hallway as he angrily demanded to know what she was going to do about his swollen lower half. Our girl frantically defended herself, explaining that he had tried to strip her out of nowhere, but he just sneered at her for daring to talk back. Others quickly chimed in with cruel threats, warning that a single word from him would get her kicked out into the freezing dead of winter without a single penny to her name. Terrified and completely broken, Lucy had no choice but to drop to her knees. She pressed her forehead flat against the rough carpet, sobbing bitterly as she begged for forgiveness over and over. Deep down inside, she was burning with intense, agonizing resentment. She hated apologizing for something she never even did, but with no money and nowhere else to go, she had to endure every bit of humiliation just to survive. She wished with all her heart that she had been born as an unfeeling plant so she wouldn't feel any of this constant pain, truly believing that if life was always going to be like this, dying would be far better. Just when her dark thoughts were reaching a terrifying breaking point, the nightmare suddenly melted away into a glowing void. Master appeared right in front of her, gently kissing her forehead before whispering for her not to say such sad things ever again. The sudden, overwhelming warmth left Lucy completely bewildered and speechlessly stunned. Before she could even begin to figure out what was happening, she jolted wide awake in her own bedroom, gasping frantically for air as a heavy thud echoed through the quiet house. Lingering words seemed to whisper gently around her, asking for forgiveness for being late, promising to return to her side soon and strictly warning her not to let her eyes wander to anyone else. Trying to gather her scattered thoughts, Lucy reached up and touched her throat, feeling sharp, stinging scratches on her skin. She couldn't tell if she had experienced a nightmare and a dream at the same time, or if she had frantically scratched herself in her sleep. But the moment she swung her feet out of bed, her bare skin immediately stepped into a dark, sickening puddle of fresh blood. Pure horror washed over her instantly. She quickly threw on a jacket and bolted outside into the chilly village streets, where she immediately found Auntie Grace clutching her head in deep distress. As it turns out, it wasn't just Lucy suffering through a bad night. Auntie Grace and every single person in the entire village had mysteriously fallen asleep at the exact same time, all trapped in their own horrifying nightmares. Realizing the whole town was actively under attack, Lucy rushed back inside her home to thoroughly investigate her room. Right beside the thick blood stain on the floor, she discovered the missing box of gemstone rings they were supposed to pick up, sitting directly next to a straw doll jammed full of sharp needles. To make matters even worse, the group of self-proclaimed archmages who had loudly swore to protect the village were nowhere to be found, leaving behind nothing but completely useless magic circles drawn across the dirt ground. Our girl immediately put her sharp mind to work, carefully analyzing the baffling situation. She recognized that widespread curses and shared nightmares were the classic signature trick of Doji, a petty hooded thug known for taking minor requests to curse innocent people. The real catch was that Doji didn't possess nearly enough magical power to affect an entire town all by himself, meaning he had to be receiving heavy assistance from someone far stronger behind the scenes. Lucy knew in her heart that Master had brought the rings back to her room, but that revelation brought up an even bigger mystery. Whose blood was currently pooling on her wooden floor? Was it Doji's blood spilled during a fight, or was it actually Master's blood? And if Master had successfully taken care of Doji, why did he vanish into thin air without saying a single word to her? Lost in her racing thoughts and mounting anxiety, Lucy walked slowly down a quiet alleyway to process everything. Suddenly, a small village girl who affectionately referred to her as Big Sis tugged gently on her skirt and pointed up toward a nearby window. The young child looked up at her with big eyes and revealed that while Lucy was asleep, she had actually witnessed the scary grown-ups fighting outside. Inside her bedroom, little Coco loves to tell herself she's the bravest kid around, convinced that nothing can ever scare her. But today, loud noises echoing from outside wake her up, making her think everyone's playing a fun game without her. Turns out what she actually stumbles into is a horrifying memory from her past. Deep inside a grand mansion, a creepy figure wrapped in bandages drives sharp metal nails straight into a straw doll. Every time a nail pierces the doll, her big sister screams out in utter agony while tearing at her neck. Little Coco freezes in terror at the sight. Seeing his sister suffer like this, her dark-haired brother loses his cool and demands the monster stop. Knowing there's no other way to save her, he grabs a bottle from the attacker and downs the whole thing himself. Blood instantly spurts from his mouth and neck, but he holds his sister tight to keep her safe, muttering that he'll be back before collapsing onto the floor. Moments later, a group of scary adults bursts in, grabbing him and flying away across the sky. That's a pretty traumatizing thing for a little kid to witness. The whole nightmare leaves young Coco watching in tears. Flash forward to the present, and Coco finally gathers the courage to tell Lucy what she saw, remembering the captors shouted about heading straight to the royal palace. Hearing this detail changes everything for Lucy. She's been desperately searching for any lead on her missing master, so learning his location brings an immediate wave of hope, and she tightly grabs Coco's hands in pure gratitude. With a clear target in sight, Lucy doesn't waste a single second getting ready to move. Down at the village carriage station as the sun sets, she wraps Coco in a tight hug and asks her to stay put, promising to bring her back a sweet gift from the royal capital. She turns to say goodbye to Auntie, but the older woman is visibly trembling with anxiety. Auntie warns her that sneaking into the capital alone is a terrible idea, because the captors are almost certainly high-ranking nobles or royalty living inside the palace. If that's true, Lucy won't even get to see their faces, let alone bring her master back home safely. At this point, you really have to respect her endless dedication. Rather than letting fear paralyze her, Lucy just smiles back with total confidence. Sitting around waiting while her master is trapped simply isn't an option for her. She reassures Auntie that she'll figure out the details along the way and asks her to leave a message for her husband if he happens to return while she's gone. She cheerfully promises that she's only taking a quick look around the capital before heading straight back, doing everything she can to put Auntie's mind at ease before stepping onto the carriage. Once she reaches the busy capital, Lucy immediately puts her plan into motion at the royal recruitment office. She knows walking through the palace gates as herself would be instant suicide, so she creates a fake identity named Mary. To make the cover stick, she pawned her precious wedding ring to buy a forged recommendation letter and dyed her hair dark brown. Sitting across from an elderly interviewer, Lucy plays the part of a 30-year-old maid who spent her life doing heavy labor for a noble family. The interviewer notes Mary looks way too young for that kind of grueling background, but Lucy smoothly laughs off the suspicion, saying she gets that all the time. Since the fake papers look completely real, the interviewer approves her on the spot. Little does anyone know, Lucy has tons of experience slipping between mansions without getting caught, so she feels totally confident in her identity. The interviewer then complains about how hard it is to hire young people lately, mentioning that everyone foolishly avoids the royal palace because of that dragon business. That phrase instantly makes Lucy flinch. It brings back memories of how her master previously brought the kings of every nation to their knees to end a war, completely crushing their public pride. Talk about timing for a job interview. Right as she processes this, a massive earthquake violently shakes the room, sending heavy supply racks swaying. The interviewer screams for everyone to hide under the desks, and Lucy quickly dives down alongside her. Turns out, the frustrated public blames all these sudden natural disasters on the king's complete incompetence. Reasoning that the king's severely bruised pride makes him the top suspect behind the kidnapping, Lucy officially infiltrates the royal guest palace, disguised as a humble housemaid. She keeps her head down while the strict supervisor sternly warns all the new hires. The supervisor makes it crystal clear that the palace is drastically understaffed during the New Year period, and anyone who embarrasses royal dignity will be fired on the spot. Days pass in a blur of endless labor, leaving Lucy barely enough time to shove dry bread into her mouth while wiping sweat from her forehead. But she isn't just here to scrub floors. Whenever she gets a spare moment in the courtyard garden, she secretly activates her dragon pupil, scanning the grounds to figure out where a king would keep a captured dragon locked away. Just as she's desperately hunting for clues, heavy footsteps approach from behind. A creepy noble with a missing front tooth leans in close, asking to see her face in a gross, oily voice. Hearing that specific voice doesn't just gross her out, it triggers an immediate wave of realization that hits her like a freight train. Suddenly, all the pieces fall into place. Hearing him speak confirms her suspicions beyond a shadow of a doubt, proving her master is definitely being held somewhere inside this very palace. Right out on the spacious palace grounds under the bright afternoon sky, an older guy named Doji casually strolls up and introduces himself to our girl Mary. He boldly claims that starting today, he is a brand new royal mage staying at the guest palace as His Majesty's honored guest. But instead of being impressed by his lofty title, Mary glares at him with deep suspicion and quickly turns away to hide her face. She recognizes this rotten guy instantly. It turns out he is the exact same piece of garbage who sold out her beloved master just to score his own official rank. On top of that, he had previously tried to drain her master's blood to turn a quick profit. To make matters even worse, Doji completely misses her intense negative reaction and casually assumes she is just an ordinary housemaid working at the palace. He acts like a total creep, stepping way too close into her personal space and even reaching out to touch her apron while complaining aloud that none of the parlor maids were to his liking. He straight up admits to her face that he prefers a girl with a big chest. Naturally, Mary is utterly disgusted by his creepy behavior, but she forces herself to stay polite and composed. She nervously stammers back that changing staff duties is not her call to make. Honestly, I don't know how she managed not to slap him right then and there. Unbothered by her visible discomfort, Doji tells her not to be so stiff around him. He leans in close and whispers for her to drop by his private room at night if she ever gets bored, even offering to burn his own body to keep her entertained. Mary silently wishes he would drop dead on the spot. But then Doji casually mentions that he cannot meet her on the night of the full moon because he has to perform a special secret ritual. Hearing that critical detail, Mary locks onto every single word he says. Doji cheerfully waves goodbye and walks away, leaving Mary feeling deeply relieved that this unsettling encounter is finally over for now. When the night of the full moon finally arrives, our girl makes her decisive move. She softly mutters her secret phrase under her breath to steady her nerves. Then she sneaks completely barefoot through the quiet, dimly lit hallways of the guest chapel. Hiding low behind the tall wooden pews, she keeps her sharp eyes locked onto a mysterious hooded figure operating a hidden secret mechanism near the grand organ. With a heavy groan of stone, the organ case slides aside to reveal a dark, open trapdoor in the floor. Mary is completely stunned by this discovery because she had carefully searched every single inch of this chapel before and somehow missed it entirely. Driven by determination, she creeps over to the opening and cautiously steps down into the dark abyss. She begins descending a narrow, winding spiral stone staircase, lit only by the weak glow of flickering candles attached to the damp walls. The staircase leads her deep into a creepy underground dungeon corridor. Even though she quickly loses track of Doji in the pitch-black hallway, she keeps navigating forward through the shadows by listening closely to the faint, echoing voices floating through the cold darkness. She knows full well that getting caught down in this secret dungeon basically means her instant funeral. Crazy high stakes for our girl. Even so, she stays totally resolute without a single shred of hesitation. Her gentle master means absolute everything to her in this world. All she wants is to reach his side, tell him she is completely fine so he is no longer forced to be controlled by Doji, and finally bring him back home safe and sound. Approaching a massive wooden door at the end of the long stone corridor, Mary finds two heavily guarded sentries clad in full dark armor standing watch with heavy iron spears. The exact moment she gets close to their perimeter, Guard A levels his sharp weapon right at her face, aggressively demanding that she immediately identify herself. Mary does not panic or lose her cool. Instead, she bows very politely and spins a clever story right on the spot. She smoothly explains that her name is Mary, a humble maid serving Lord Doji, and that she was personally sent to deliver an essential item needed for his urgent ritual. Guard B mutters in confusion, noting to his partner that Lord Doji was present right there inside just a short moment ago. The two armored guards whisper back and forth in hushed tones while considering her claim. Finally, Guard A turns back toward her and sternly asks where her hometown is located. Even though her heart is pounding with intense nervousness, Mary answers truthfully that she is from Land's End Village. Surprisingly, that simple answer is all it takes to convince them. Guard A immediately shouts "Clear," quickly unlocks the heavy iron-reinforced door, and tells her to hurry up inside. But as soon as Mary crosses the threshold and steps into the room, Doji suddenly ambushes her from behind while wearing his dark, hooded cloak. He smugly asks her if it seems like he was patiently waiting for her all along. When a shocked Mary turns around and asks how he possibly knew she was coming, Doji boasts that since they used to live together under the same roof, he would recognize her from behind anywhere in the world. In that horrifying moment, Mary realizes she has walked straight into a carefully calculated trap. Confronted by a defiant Mary, Doji casually admits that he intentionally set up this elaborate trap to lure her here because he knew she would never accept a sincere invitation from him anyway. At this point, this guy is practically begging for a beatdown. He goes on to reveal the full truth behind his scheme. An immensely wealthy client paid him an absolute fortune to capture the mighty dragon and turn it over directly to the royal mages. However, right after he flew through the freezing cold sky alongside the giant beast, his wealthy client gave him a brand new order to capture Mary as well. When Mary demands to know why anyone would want her, Doji simply shrugs it off in indifference. He admits he has absolutely no idea what his client wants with her, but he only cares about getting paid his huge cash reward and cannot back out of the deal now. He then points his finger deeper into the pitch-black darkness ahead, telling her that the exact person she has been searching for is right down below. Mary angrily calls him a shameless liar. In response, Doji grins wickedly and pulls a heavy metal wall lever beside him. The wall pulls back to uncover a massive subterranean pit, filled with roaring, violent flames. He casually explains to her that all those frequent earthquakes shaking the capital city lately are actually caused by two massive dragons locked in battle down below. Looking down into the fiery, blazing depths with wide eyes, Mary watches in sheer horror as her gentle master in full dragon form is locked in a brutal, violent, and desperate battle against an extremely aggressive female dragon with glowing red eyes. Flashback to about 2 weeks ago inside the dark castle depths. Our guy Scar is locked inside a cold dungeon cell, absolutely boiling with rage. Every single second spent behind those heavy iron bars makes his dragon blood run hotter. All he can think about is recovering his magic so he can tear the entire royal palace down brick by brick. But even through all that furious anger, he cannot stop worrying about Lucy. He keeps staring at the cold walls, wondering if she has finally opened her eyes after her sudden collapse. And honestly, who could blame him? Before he can dwell on his worry any longer, footsteps echo down the stone hallway. The old king strolls right up to his cell, acting ridiculously smug and wiping off his dusty royal robes. The king immediately starts complaining about Scar's terrible manners. He claims that despite sending letter after letter over the last 3 years, Scar never bothered to send a single reply. Naturally, that entitled whining pisses Scar off even more. He narrows his eyes and reminds the king that since he isn't human, he has zero reason to listen to royal commands. He even mocks the old ruler by asking if he should burn down the rest of his precious palace too. That sharp taunt gets right under the king's skin. The old man tries to argue that they could have worked everything out peacefully if Scar had just visited his court once. But Scar sees right through the royal act. He knows exactly what greedy humans are truly after. They just want to drain his rare dragon blood so they can prolong their own feeble lives. Because of that shameless greed, Scar tells the king to stop whining, except that his time is up and drop dead right where he stands. Hearing those cold words completely sets the king off into a furious frenzy. He starts screaming at the top of his lungs, his face turning bright red as he shakes his fists at the bars. He blabbers endlessly about how his survival is the only thing keeping the whole kingdom peaceful. He rants about how his royal heirs are completely useless fools who cannot govern a single province, right before breaking into a violent coughing fit. Scar is not moved by the dramatic display in the slightest. He just stares down at the pathetic ruler with utter contempt. He calmly asks what an old ruler could possibly lack when he already owns a whole kingdom, a warm home, and a big family. That simple question hits a sore nerve. The king snaps back in an absolute outrage, screaming that a filthy beast has no right to talk down to him. That is when the old ruler drops a massive bombshell on our guy. He asks Scar if he really has no interest in seeing his long-lost mother again. He reveals that the Black Dragon has been locked up in the deepest royal vault for the last 20 years. The king sneers and insists that dragons never appear in the human realm by accident. He tells Scar that if he ever wants to see his mother alive again, he needs to surrender his blood without fighting back. What a plot twist. Scar is left standing completely motionless in total shock. Seeing his hesitation, the king instantly begins casting a violent fireball to force his submission. But Scar reacts much faster. He instantly blasts the old man straight in the chest with a surge of dark dragon magic. The heavy impact knocks the king out cold, sending his royal guards into total chaos as they scream for a royal doctor. But Scar pays no attention to the frantic guards around him. He reaches his heavy hands right through the cell bars, deciding he must verify this claim himself. He grabs the nearest guard and angrily demands they lead the way to the vault right now. Meanwhile, back in the quiet palace corridors, Lucy is standing totally paralyzed with shock while tightly clutching her medicine container. Her mind is racing in complete confusion as she tries to process everything she just overheard. She desperately refuses to believe that the terrible beast locked inside the royal castle could actually be Scar's mother. She keeps pacing back and forth, trying to understand why everyone is fighting each other like this, but her confusion only makes the situation far worse. Suddenly, an old hooded figure steps out from a shadowy doorway nearby. The strange figure lets out a low, creepy laugh, looking down at her with pure amusement before dropping a ridiculously heavy truth. The figure coldly tells her that this entire bloody tragedy is actually all because of her. To prove the shocking claim, the figure reaches down and places a withered hand on a green leather manuscript. It is the exact same dragon research journal that Lucy clearly remembered seeing on Scar's desk back in his private study. The figure tauntingly asks if she truly knows who that research book was written for in the first place. The figure flips the dusty cover open, pointing right at the handwritten dedication page titled, "To My Beloved Family." When Lucy steps closer and looks down, the ancient handwriting clearly reads, "To my beloved wife, Mary, and to my daughter, Lucy." That single terrifying discovery completely freezes our girl in pure horror. Her breath catches in her throat and her hands shake uncontrollably. The hooded figure smugly explains that hearing Lucy's name and seeing her unique ring instantly triggered an old memory, forcing them to go back and check the manuscript stored at home. It turns out that Lucy is actually the daughter of Garen. Garen was a greedy researcher who was so ridiculously obsessed with dragon magic that he was willing to do anything to land a high position as a royal official. A quick emotional flashback reveals the horrifying truth of what her father actually did all those years ago. Garen actually stole Scar when he was just a helpless baby dragon. He spent years locked away in his secret lab, draining Scar's blood, selling it for massive profits, and running cruel experiments just to boost his own royal career. In his ruthless greed, he completely abandoned his own wife and daughter. Scar was forced to endure that endless, horrific nightmare until his draconic power finally awakened and he snapped. Scar destroyed the entire research mansion in a violent rage, leaving Garen crushed underneath the bloody ruins. Honestly, that is just pure tragedy. As the manuscript slips from her shaking fingers and drops to the stone floor, everything finally connects in Lucy's mind. The agonizing realization that her own father ruined Scar's entire life completely breaks her spirit. She breaks down sobbing and collapses straight to her knees in pure despair, while the hooded figure stands over her with a sinister smirk. Lucy runs as fast as her legs can carry her. She sprints through a dark castle hall in total panic. Her heart pounds wildly against her chest. Heavy panting fills the cold corridor. Someone sinister pursues her closely from behind. It is Doji. He is a gray-haired old man wearing a dark hooded cloak. He taunts her every single step of the way. He wants to make sure she knows her master already knows her biggest secret. He claims he laid out every single detail during a private talk inside his mansion. This news leaves our girl in total distress. Tears stream uncontrollably down her face as she runs. Flashback to that intense moment inside the magic chamber. Our guy Kazat is breathing heavy steam in sheer rage. He refuses to believe it is just a pure coincidence. He cannot accept that the daughter of his family's worst enemy ended up working right under his roof. Meanwhile, Doji lies flat on his back inside a magic circle. He laughs mockingly up at him without a care in the world. It turns out Kazat had already turned away over 100 different maids before this moment. On the other hand, our girl spent years hopping from carriage to carriage across the countryside. She was just trying to avoid anyone who might recognize her identity. Between a guy constantly looking for a maid and a maid endlessly wandering for work, their meeting was never random luck. It was completely inevitable. Fate pulled the kidnapper's daughter and her family's natural enemy together. They were two souls separated by a long legacy of blood and hatred. That heavy realization hits our girl like a speeding freight train. She races down the torchlit stone stairs while her mind spirals into deep uncertainty. She cannot stop wondering how her master felt when he finally discovered the truth. She wonders why he chose to stay by her side. He held her close like nothing had ever changed between them. Honestly, that's a massive emotional burden for anyone to carry alone. Overwhelmed with sorrow, she wipes away her tears with her sleeve. She forces her feet forward even faster. She just wants to reach him as quickly as possible. She wants to apologize for leaving him to suffer through all this pain by himself. She prays from the bottom of her heart that her master will never have to endure any more suffering. Meanwhile, things are looking completely grim in a fiery realm far away. Scorch marks cover the ground while hot lava bubbles around them. Kazat is battered, bruised, and forced down on his knees. He stands in front of his mother, a cold, pure-blood dragon floating high above him. She looks down on him with sheer contempt. She reminds him that a half-blood like him can never defeat a true pure-blood. She tauntingly asks if he is tired of constantly passing out. She asks why he keeps throwing himself back into a fight he cannot win. But our guy is not giving up that easily. He spits dark blood onto the burning ground below. He boldly tells her that he is going to keep fighting until he finally takes her down for good. Unbothered by his fiery defiance, she taunts him further by bringing up the old king. She claims the royal ruler will soon bring his human wife directly to him. She explains that humans crave dragon blood above all else in this world. Kazat sarcastically asks if 20 long years of sleeping finally gave her motherly affection for her child. But she cold-heartedly replies that the human is simply useful to her plans. She remembers back to when Kazat came to burn down the royal palace. She recalls how the king bowed down low to fulfill his end of the bargain. The king handed over her blanketed child to secure his own future. When Kazat corrects her timeline and reminds her it happened 3 years ago instead of 3 days, she completely ignores the detail. She simply admits the king did a respectable job extending his own lifespan. Then she drops a massive bombshell that changes everything in an instant. She reveals that she already told the king about the maid hiding her true identity. She exposed her as the kidnapper's daughter. She also revealed that this human bug managed to seduce her own son. How can a mother be completely heartless? Furious at the very thought, she declares that the idea of them being together is utterly absurd. She openly vows to slaughter the human woman the second she arrives in this fiery realm. Lucy pauses on the stairwell in absolute horror as she hears those terrifying words echo through her mind. She realizes the immense danger heading her way, but she refuses to turn back now. Back in the realm of fire, Kazat just smirks right in his mother's face. He asks who on earth she thinks is going to let her do something like that. He looks back on his painful childhood memories. He remembers when he was just a little kid wrapped in a small hood. He was crying all alone in the dark woods with his dragon horns freshly severed. High above him, a massive black dragon flew through the stormy sky without looking back. Even after everything he went through in his miserable past, he does not hold a single shred of resentment. Why? Because the only thing that actually pulled him out of that deep darkness was the warm smile of the maid who accepted him for who he was. Driven by that pure devotion, he slams his fist straight onto the burning magma floor. He roars at the top of his lungs that he alone gets to decide how to live his life. He warns her that not even his own parents are allowed to interfere with his choices anymore. Realizing he does not view the human as just an asset, but actually loves her as his true partner, the mother dragon decides to end his life. She summons a massive spinning fireball right above her hands to erase him once and for all. Khazad gathers every single drop of his fiery magic. He launches a massive blaze of fire right back at her with everything he has. But she casually steps straight through the raging flames. She emerges completely unharmed and ready to deliver a fatal strike. Right before her deadly attack can reach him, a sudden blinding light erupts across the entire realm. Wow, right in at the absolute last second. Out of nowhere, Lucy leaps directly between Khazad and the deadly strike. She spreads her arms wide open with her eyes burning with pure determination. Khazad can only stare in complete shock. He screams her name at the top of his lungs right as an overwhelming, blinding explosion of raw magic and heat fills the entire realm. Deep in a fiery cavern, pure chaos erupts as Khazad shields his maid, Lucy, from a terrifying robed figure floating midair. Even though Khazad is taking the full brunt of the scalding heat and looking severely battered, his immediate instinct isn't to worry about his own pain. Instead, he sharply scolds Lucy for recklessly throwing herself directly into danger. Poor Lucy is trembling uncontrollably from the terrifying pressure, but she grabs onto him with every ounce of strength she has left. She tearfully cries out that she couldn't just stand by and watch him get torn apart right before her eyes. That sudden, genuine surge of affection catches our guy completely off guard. His angry, protective posture instantly melts into a flustered scramble as he pulls her close to his chest. Unfortunately for the two of them, Khazad's cold dragon mother is watching this touching display unfold with absolute ice in her eyes. Khazad tries his best to maintain a tough front, glaring fiercely up at his mother while declaring that his body will recover in no time, and she won't be as lucky once he gets back on his feet. Terrible timing for a tough guy speech. The dragon mother isn't fazed in the slightest by his threat. She coldly calls them out for having the unbelievable nerve to ignore someone standing directly in front of them. That suffocating aura would easily crush almost anyone in the realm, but our girl Lucy somehow finds a sudden, unexpected spark of courage. Instead of cowering or shrinking away, she steps right forward, stares down this terrifying powerhouse, and tells her directly that she's looking at her now, dropping a massive bombshell by revealing that she's actually Scar's lover. Dropping a massive claim like that directly to an all-powerful dragon matriarch is a huge gamble, instantly turning the burning cave into a complete death trap. The floating figure's expression darkens into a murderous glare of pure fury, deeply outraged that a frail, mortal maid would ever dare stand up to her and claim her son. Honestly, you've got to admire the sheer audacity here. Right in that heavy, suffocating beat, the story suddenly shifts into a quiet flashback. It shows a gentle blonde woman cradling baby Khazad and baby Lucy side by side, letting the tiny infants rest peacefully long before any of this chaotic madness ever began. But returning to the scorching reality of the cavern, there's zero peace to be found. Lucy is sweating profusely and shaking with fear as the dragon mother gives her a chilling ultimatum, demanding to know if she has any final words before she gets completely wiped out. Seeing his helpless maid cornered like a target, Khazad steps right in to shield her once again and attempts to negotiate. He firmly reminds his mother that this bitter feud is strictly a private matter between parent and child, promising that his own severe wounds will heal up just fine once he gets enough time to tend to them. Unfortunately, trying to calm down an enraged dragon parent only fuels the flames even more. The mother completely loses her temper, screaming in utter rage that he's the absolute last person who should ever dare speak to her like that, sternly warning him to know his place. With her overwhelming fury boiling completely out of control, the dragon mother rips off her dark cloak and reveals her imposing half-dragon form, radiating an unbearable surge of raw magical energy. Seconds later, her power skyrockets even higher as she undergoes a dramatic full transformation. She expands into a colossal giant dragon covered in thick, impenetrable brown scales with glowing red eyes, sharp lethal horns, and a deafening roar that echoes off every stone wall in the cave. Even when faced with a literal legendary monster, Khazad refuses to back down or show a single moment of weakness. He firmly stands his ground, holding Lucy securely in his arms as the massive beast looms directly over them. The giant dragon peers down at the shocked maid, her booming voice demanding to know why a fragile mortal would ever choose to stay by her son's side. She mockingly questions if Lucy is merely clinging to him to leech off his divine dragon blood, or if she's desperately hoping to prolong her own brief human lifespan. Lucy is momentarily stunned by the cold, heartless accusation, but instead of shrinking back in terror, she looks right up into Khazad's deep red eyes and holds his hand tightly. Looking at the brave man who has repeatedly risked his life and shed his own blood to keep her safe, a warm, loving smile spreads across her face. At this point, I don't even blame her for taking that leap. She turns back to face the giant dragon completely fearless and boldly delivers her true answer. She stays simply because she has fallen completely and irrevocably in love with him. Hearing that heartfelt confession triggers another sudden memory from long ago, shifting the narrative back to a much happier era. In that brief emotional flashback, a young and radiant dragon mother stands joyfully beside Khazad's father, a friendly, Freckled man who looks absolutely thrilled as the two proud parents gaze lovingly down at their newborn baby, sleeping peacefully in their arms. It's a poignant, bittersweet glimpse into a forgotten past where warmth and family affection actually existed, long before all this tragedy tore everything apart. But just as the emotional weight of that memory lingers in the air, the story smoothly transitions away from the stifling heat and life-or-death tension of the cavern. It sweeps far out into the cool, refreshing open air outside the castle grounds. Looking out under the quiet, starry night sky, the illuminated castle and surrounding town buildings glow peacefully off in the distance. Everyone outside remains completely oblivious to the intense, desperate struggle taking place far beneath the surface. Deep inside the royal palace, the vibrating stone walls tell you everything you need to know about the fierce battle raging downstairs. In the king's private bedroom, the old monarch clutches his chest in agony, frantic to know if the legendary Black Dragon Mother finally took out his son Kazat and his mate. Up in the palace scrying room, mages channel their magic into a floating orb, but the heavy smoke downstairs is way too thick to see anything clearly. That makes the king blow a complete fuse, screaming at the top of his lungs because he's terrified of growing old and dying if this plan fails. Seeing the old man lose it, his servant Doji steps in to calm him down, assuring him that the Black Dragon Mother treats all other dragons as sworn enemies. Because of that, there's no way she'd ever let Kazat or his girl out alive. That calms the king just enough to start complaining about how Kazat tried to trick him by using marriage as a cover to lure the dragon outside. Doji gives him a polite smile, but on the inside, he couldn't care less. At this point, we might have also done the same. Turns out, Doji harbors massive resentment toward the king. Years ago, the monarch slashed Doji's face to pieces over one minor mistake, only healing him after his next job playing a sick game of doctor with the disease and the cure. But since Doji already got his fat payday, he doesn't give a damn about royal drama anymore. He just wants the old man to drop dead so he can go home and sleep. Meanwhile, the smoke inside the scrying orb finally clears, giving the mages a front row view of the lava pit. A lot of high stakes. Down in the burning pit, things aren't looking great, but our favorite couple is still alive. Kazat kneels on the hot stone ground, using his own body to shield an unconscious Lucy while she weakly coughs up blood from the extreme heat. Looming right over them is the massive Black Dragon Mother, inspecting them both. She's actually pretty impressed they held out this long, acknowledging Kazat as her true son even though he's a half-blood. But as her gaze drops to a single dragon scale resting on the stone floor, Kazat completely snaps. Flashbacks of his mom playing with him as a baby flash through his mind, filling him with pure rage. He stands right up and yells straight at her face, telling her not to take her bitter anger out on Lucy. He makes it crystal clear that Lucy is the one person who actually brought joy into his life, warning his mother that if she lays another finger on her, he'll gladly stake his own life to put her down for good. That terrifying threat breaks Lucy's heart. Crawling up behind Kazat, she wraps her arms tightly around his waist, weeping against his back. She begs him never to stake his life on anything like that, reminding him that their time together in this world is already way too short. All she wants is to live a long, happy life right by his side. Honestly, that's enough to bring anyone to tears. Kazat freezes in utter shock listening to her plead like that. At the same time, the Black Dragon Mother gets pulled back into her own memories. She recalls teaching baby Kazat the ultimate law of dragon nature. When a dragon grows up and finds a mate who loves him, he gives her one of his scales, stays by her side, and ignores anyone trying to stop them. In her eyes, any man who couldn't pull that off wasn't fit to be her child. Seeing Kazat turn around to warmly embrace Lucy, the Dragon Mother glances at her own chest, noticing the missing scale spot where she gave one away long ago. A soft smile touches her lips as she realizes her boy actually remembered her words. You gotta love dragon family dynamics. But right when things get emotional, someone suddenly taps Kazat on the back and orders him to step aside because he's blocking the view. Before Kazat can even react, his mother shifts into human form, grabs Lucy right by the face, and plants a massive kiss straight on her lips. Kazat stands there frozen in shock as visual lightning bolts explode behind him. The mom pulls back, casually licking her lip while Lucy gasps in total shock. That sends Kazat straight into an absolute tailspin of comedic rage, screaming at his mother to stop kissing his wife. You really can't make this stuff up. Lucy touches her chest in amazement, realizing it's suddenly gotten way easier to breathe. The Dragon Mother flusteredly explains that human lungs can't handle extreme heat, and since Kazat completely burned through his magic protecting her, she had to step in and transfer her own mana to heal her future daughter-in-law. Lucy smiles brightly, genuinely thanking her new mother-in-law, but our girl isn't done. She immediately teases that Mom's face is turning redder than it was during the kiss. Flustered beyond belief, the Dragon Mother furiously deadpans that it's just because the room is hot, quickly shifting the focus over to the black scale tattoos covering Kazat's body. Talk about terrible timing for a fashion check. Lucy playfully holds Kazat's hands, teasingly asking if these new tattoos are just a trend or total youthful recklessness, leaving Kazat completely flustered while his mother nonchalantly walks off. But back upstairs in the palace, the mood is dead silent. Doji sits frozen on the floor in dumbfounded shock, staring wide-eyed at the scrying orb. Right beside him, the old king clutches his bedpost, trembling in complete horror as he watches Kazat and Lucy standing alive, well, and completely fine. What an absolute nightmare for the king. Inside the quiet shadows of the red rocky cave, Tunisia looks over at her son and points out that he was thrashing around endlessly, in his sleep, making it a complete nightmare to keep him still for even a second. Hearing that blunt observation, our guy snaps back in frustration. His body is already struggling to handle the intense magic coursing through him because of the full moon, and he sharply reminds her that she was the one who started their violent fight in the first place. Lucy clings nervously to his arm, doing her absolute best to calm her master down before another explosion happens. That's really rough. But Tunisia completely ignores his dramatic outburst, casually telling them both to pack up and move out because she simply cannot leave the human king and his men alone to do as they please. Naturally, our guy gets deeply suspicious. Sweating from the sudden shift in her attitude, he questions why on earth she suddenly changed her mind after being so dead set on killing them all just moments ago. Tunisia drops a deadpan reality check right onto him. She plainly points out that if she had actually wanted those humans dead, they would have already been reduced to a pile of ash, meaning he fails to realize she was holding back her true power the entire time. That realization leaves him completely speechless. She hums softly to herself, admitting she was admittedly furious at first, but after actually listening to what he had to say, she understood his point of view. Even so, she adds that she could not just let the whole ordeal go without venting a little bit of her frustration through a quick brawl. With a smug grin plastered across her face, she casually strolls off, telling him he ought to be grateful she decided to wrap things up so quickly. As her off-screen voice echoes in the distance about how much she enjoyed their quality family time alone, both our guy and Lucy stand completely frozen on the spot. Our guy mutters under his breath in pure disbelief, asking if she seriously considers brutal beatings to be nothing more than playful bonding, while Lucy dryly points out that is simply how his mother rolls. Thinking back to a distant memory of his smiling father happily poking his cheek while he cried hysterically as a baby, our guy finally connects the dots and realizes with absolute certainty that his father was a total masochist. Meanwhile, over at the Grand Royal Palace, the ancient king and his evil royal mage are intensely watching every single thing unfold through a glowing purple crystal ball. Seeing the two terrifying dragons make peace with one another sends the mage into a state of total, uncontrolled panic. He starts hyperventilating on the spot, frantically wondering how two legendary monsters could possibly reconcile like this, and coming to the conclusion that they must both be completely insane. Talk about terrible timing. Realizing that his very life is hanging by a thread, he desperately tries to figure out a way out of this nightmare. He briefly considers throwing the old king under the bus to save his own skin, but he quickly realizes the old man is so utterly obsessed with acquiring dragon power that he would sacrifice his own royal mage as an offering without a second thought. Sensing the immediate danger, the mage knows he has to run for his life right now before the surrounding guards and mages notice his sudden change of heart. Unfortunately for him, the sharp-eyed king spots his growing panic, gasps in absolute shock, and immediately commands the palace guards to seize him. Knowing it is now or never, the evil mage lunges forward with desperate speed and grabs the king violently from behind, pressing a sharp dagger directly against his delicate throat. The king starts choking in sheer terror, while the subordinate mages around the room break into a chaotic panic. The evil mage screams at the top of his lungs for no one to move, loudly declaring that if anyone dares to take a single step forward, the old man dies instantly. He lets out an unhinged, hysterical laugh, taunting that the king is so physically frail he would probably die of a sudden heart attack from loud noises or aggressive magic anyway. Forcing a frightened young subordinate mage to step forward at knife point, he furiously demands to be flown out toward the distant northern lands right away using advanced flight magic. Flying high through the cold night sky high above the sprawling city, the evil mage violently warns the young subordinate not to dare slow down for even a fraction of a second. He holds the terrified king tightly against his chest while shivering uncontrollably from adrenaline, mentally reassuring himself that if he can just survive through the night, he can lay low in some far-off, forgotten alleyway and take on small underground mercenary jobs where nobody recognizes his face. Turns out, his grand escape plan falls apart real fast. An ominous off-screen voice suddenly cuts through the cold night air, asking the little punk where he thinks he is heading in such a hurry, and stating in an icy tone that he needs to settle his massive debts first. Before the evil mage can even react to the threat, a massive, overwhelming wave of dark red fire erupts right in front of them, instantly freezing the flight spell in place and leaving both the screaming king and the panicked mage trapped motionless in midair. The mage looks up in absolute horror, finding Tunisia floating majestically under the full moon alongside our guy, who is currently holding Lucy safely in a comfortable princess carry. With a menacing, crimson glow shining from his eyes, our guy stares down at the trembling mage in cold, unfiltered rage. He proclaims through a surging, demonic aura that while he might be willing to ignore all the horrific things that were done to himself, the evil mage went out of his way to inflict terrible, unforgivable wounds on Lucy. Because of that cruel atrocity, slaughtering the mage 10,000 times over still would not be nearly enough to satisfy his anger. Driven completely insane by overwhelming fear, the evil mage frantically attempts to shift all the blame onto the helpless king. But the terrified king instantly shouts back at the top of his lungs, eagerly offering the mage up on a silver platter just to save his own miserable skin. The king desperately begs for his life, frantically claiming that he only ever ordered the dragon to be captured and brought in, so any physical damage caused to the innocent maid was entirely the evil mage's doing. At this point, I don't even blame her. Our Guy and Lucy watch the two pathetic captives bicker back and forth in total, dumbfounded silence. Before their pathetic squabble can drag on any longer, Tunisia steps in and interrupts them, addressing the human king directly with overwhelming authority. Her tone turns freezing cold and absolute as she formally declares his final punishment. She decrees that he will be allowed to live only for the rest of his natural lifespan, but from this moment on, no matter what dark magic or forbidden means he attempts to use, he will never taste a single drop of dragon blood ever again. Casting her overwhelmingly powerful magic beneath the glowing light of the full moon, she stares down as the old king stutters her name in horrified, agonizing realization. Turning her back on him, she leaves the rest of the physical punishment to her son's decision, commanding the fallen king to finally wake up from his foolish, greedy dream. The old king screams in absolute soul-crushing despair as all of his grand ambitions completely shatter into pieces, his fading cries echoing endlessly out into the vast, open landscape outside. Out in the pitch-black forest, things are looking extremely tense and dangerous. The hooded captor, Doji, is holding a sharp dagger right at the old king's trembling throat, who is actually Doji's former accomplice, and the poor old guy is shaking uncontrollably. Nearby, our dragon mom is just standing there watching the whole dramatic scene play out with a completely calm expression. She quietly decides in her head that she is going to support whatever choice her son makes next. Before anyone can react, Doji starts screaming at his hostage to wake up from his pathetic dream. This causes the old king to let out a panicked shriek of terror. Doji completely loses his mind, yelling at the top of his lungs that all of this mess is the old man's fault. He blames him for giving him some supposedly foolproof plan that totally blew up right in their faces. But our old king is definitely not going down without a fierce fight. Instead of begging for mercy, he suddenly lunges forward and bites down viciously right into Doji's arm. The pain is so intense that Doji screams out in pure agony. He thrashes around wildly, but the stubborn old guy refuses to let go. Driven by pure rage and desperation, Doji raises his sharp blade and stabs the king straight in the chest. Blood sprays everywhere as the king coughs violently, leaving everyone completely frozen in absolute shock. Our main guy, who is currently holding our maid in his arms, stands alongside the loyal white-cloaked servant in utter disbelief. He feels like intervening in someone's final moments is strictly forbidden by honor. Even so, the dying king summons one last burst of strength and stabs Doji right back in the body. Both men collapse hard to the ground, causing the servant to scream out in total panic. Seeing the king falling fast, our main guy quickly clicks his tongue. He uses his magic so the king's body floats gently down to the soft grass instead of crashing down hard. The weeping servant scrambles over immediately, sobbing uncontrollably that he will rush back to the castle to save him before it is too late. While the servant continues sobbing over the barely breathing king, Dragon Mom casually walks right past them toward the dying Doji. Meanwhile, our guy keeps holding the maid securely in his arms as his powerful mom takes full charge of the situation. She looks down at the bleeding Doji without even a single ounce of sympathy. She cold-bloodedly reminds him that it is going to be super troublesome if he dies before telling them how to lift the curse on her precious son. She makes it crystal clear that even if he drinks her dragon blood to survive his fatal wounds, he will still pay heavily for everything he did. Coughing up dark blood, Doji frantically explains that the curse tattoo is actually just a physical wound, and normally dragon magic would heal it right away. But to stop that natural healing process from overriding the spell, they mix something completely foul into dragon blood to turn it into a lethal poison. What else can they not do just to get what they want? Unfortunately for him, our main guy does not care about the magical mechanics behind the spell at all. He completely loses his cool and snaps in anger, telling Doji that nobody asked for an unwanted spell breakdown. He furiously demands that Doji just needs to explain how to lift the curse immediately. Before Doji can give any kind of response, Dragon Mom completely loses interest in him and turns straight toward the maid. She casually refers to her as her future daughter-in-law, without skipping a beat. That sudden title startles our girl so much that she lets out a loud gasp in pure shock. But Dragon Mom quickly reassures her not to worry about the dying captor anymore. She calmly points out that if they just abandon him here in the woods, the starving wild beasts will gladly tear him apart for a delicious meal. Our maid quickly agrees with a smile, stating that she does not mind that gruesome fate for him at all. With that dark matter out of the way, Dragon Mom immediately shifts gears to discuss the upcoming wedding ceremony. She mentions that since the two young lovers have not held their official ceremony yet, they should handle that right away now that all the life-or-death drama is finally over. She even admits that she is actually really looking forward to it. That sudden wave of enthusiasm leaves our main guy looking completely exasperated. He turns to his mom and asks why on earth she is getting way more excited about this wedding than the actual couple. That is when our maid blushes nervously, sweating profusely as she prepares to make a small confession. She sheepishly admits to them that she actually left her wedding ring at a local pawn shop to cover her travel costs. So if they want to hold the ceremony now, they need to go find some quick cash first to buy it back. Hearing that she casually pawned off their precious wedding ring leaves our main guy screaming in utter disbelief and frustration. As the quiet night settles over the dark starry sky, Dragon Mom teases him ruthlessly. She points out that he was basically just a human wallet to her this whole entire time. At this point, I don't even blame her. Our main guy gapes at her in total shock and betrayal, while the maid frantically tries to defend herself. She yells out that she had absolutely no other choice if she wanted to pull off her secret infiltration mission successfully. Either way, the grand wedding is now right around the corner. On a quiet shore, Kazak kneels before a tombstone with Lucy's name carved into the cold stone, completely trapped in his absolute worst nightmare. He feels completely broken inside. But then, our girl Lucy steps up beside him, gently reassuring him that this nightmare is finally over and asking if losing her is really what terrifies him most in this world. When he quietly admits that it is, she steps in and hugs him tightly from behind. She reminds him that grief can wait while they focus on enjoying the present and making endless happy memories together. That single moment of tender comfort completely melts his heavy hesitation. As they sit together side by side on the soft grass, he grips her hands tightly to share his deepest dream for their shared future. He tells her he wants to build a beautiful house with a vibrant blue roof, a matching blue door, and clean white walls. Hearing that specific detail makes Lucy giggle with pure delight because he actually remembered her dream home down to the smallest detail. Who wouldn't fall for a guy like that? She teasingly points out that since she blew her entire personal fortune infiltrating the royal palace to rescue him, he has to take full responsibility for both of them now. Our guy sheepishly admits he can't really build something like that on his own anymore, but Lucy instantly promises to take total charge of the project. She then looks him right in the eyes and asks if they can build this brand new life together, right in her hometown instead. That sudden request catches Kazak completely off guard, making him pause and wonder why on earth she would ever want to go back to a place with so many painful memories. Lucy acknowledges that living there definitely won't be easy for either of them, but she genuinely wants to change how her people see dragons forever. She breaks it down simple for him. When a rogue wizard caused massive trouble in the past, the villagers didn't suddenly start hating every single human magic user. But because dragons are so extremely rare and powerful, everyone instantly fears them without a second thought. If Kazak were just a regular human guy, people would just think he's a short-tempered wizard having a bad day. But because he's a dragon, they automatically treat him like a crazy, dangerous monster. Kazak finds her total honesty a little harsh to hear out loud, but deep down, he knows she's completely right. Seeing his quiet reaction, our girl gets instantly flustered, frantically waving her hands as she explains that people can definitely change their minds once they actually interact with him in person, just like she did. She even passionately adds that she truly hopes the villagers and his mother can sit down and talk peacefully one day, though she quickly clarifies she would never force anything uncomfortable on him. That heartfelt speech completely gets to Kazak. He gazes at her affectionately, realizing his mom is still his mom and living in Lucy's village might actually help those old bad memories fade away for good. He gently promises to do whatever she wants, leaving her blushing furiously. Touched beyond words by his answer, Lucy thanks him and confesses her deep love as they share a sweet kiss, knowing that even though this path will be tough for him, he's choosing to stand by her side no matter what. A little while later, they are riding inside a small horse-drawn carriage down the bumpy street, but the vibe inside the cabin is ridiculously uncomfortable. Poor Lucy is stuck sitting right in the middle between Kazak and his stern mother, who is sitting there with her arms tightly crossed in absolute silence. Desperate to break the suffocating tension, Lucy turns and asks Kazak if he's completely worn out from traveling all morning. Kazak tries his absolute best to act cool and casual, showing off his custom gold ring and mentioning that picking up their matching rings was the absolute least he could do for their future. Unfortunately for him, his mother takes one single look at the jewelry and immediately roasts him without holding back, calling the ring cheap and declaring that no cheapskate could ever be a child of hers. Mom has absolutely zero chill. Kazak gets instantly heated and shouts back that the rings were custom made in a major big city, leading to a loud, chaotic argument while Lucy just sits trapped between them praying for dear life. But as it turns out, his mother didn't just come along for a quiet family ride. Earlier that morning, she started wondering if humans would ever leave her beloved son alone, and decided in 5 seconds flat that she was going to settle some old scores herself under the flimsy guise of compensation negotiations. Knowing how terrifying her prospective mother-in-law can be when she's motivated, Lucy folds her hands in desperate prayer, hoping her fellow villagers somehow survive whatever vengeance Dragon Mom has planned during their upcoming 2-week trip to the village at the edge of the world. The exact second their carriage finally comes to a halt at the village green, all hopes of a peaceful and quiet visit completely fly right out the window. Mother Dragon steps out of the carriage, dramatically throws off her dark outer robe, and instantly transforms in a blinding flash of bright light into a colossal black dragon with glowing red eyes towering over the entire town center. At this point, I don't even blame those villagers for panicking. An elderly woman dropping her laundry basket in sheer terror says everything you need to know. Kazak watches the massive transformation in massive concern, while Lucy literally bites her own hand in panicked disbelief as she realizes what's about to happen. The massive dragon lets out a terrifying, menacing announcement that echoes across the entire settlement, loudly declaring that she is back to settle a 20-year-old score and commanding every single person to gather in one place immediately. Flying high over the village rooftops with her massive dark wings spread wide, she mockingly invites all the villagers out for a nice, friendly chat. Naturally, absolutely nobody is buying her friendly act for a single second. Screaming frantically to save their own lives, the terrified villagers throw the entire town into total chaotic madness as they scatter in every possible direction, running for cover. Enjoying this so far? Comment master for the next part. Until next time, ciao.